Honest. Buddy, you got your ears on?
You are listening to the Hillbilly Radio Network. We are the Resistance.
On a specified 1,000. I'll play. Lieutenant. Draw by both. 3, 2, 1.
This is Patriot Outlaws, broadcasting live from the last outpost of freedom in FEMA Region 4, deep behind enemy lines in the heart of Dixie. If you are receiving this transmission, we are the Resistance. Are you an outlaw?
Howdy, Outlaws. Big Mac here. This is Patriot Outlaws broadcasting worldwide from the great state of South Carolina. Today is July the 30th, 2016. Man, oh man, the month of July has passed us by. We have a special guest tonight, Dr. Aquino. Sir, how are you doing tonight? Are you still there?
I'm here.
Fantastic.
Doing fine, and thanks for the invitation to join you tonight.
Yeah, anybody who doesn't know Dr. Aquino, he's got an illustrious background out there. He's a colonel in the United States military, PhD in political science. Your background, sir, is just more than I can probably reiterate on the air. This is the real deal. Everybody listening to us has heard of you without a doubt. It's no mystery. We spoke about this ad nauseum. Everybody who comes on this show, typically from another standpoint, is mentioned your name in some aspect or another, whether accurately or not. And I really appreciate the opportunity to get you on to have the other side of this whole story. And I think I mentioned to you, we sent you some questions there as we were bantering back and forth to get you on. And, the first time I recall you, I was a kid, watching Oprah and Donahue and that kind of thing. Saw you on there during the whole satanic panic era. And, I just wonder what led up to all that getting on Oprah. Did that change your life in any way?
Well, it interrupted it, certainly, because before 1980, there was absolutely not a hint anywhere in the United States or any place else of anything along the line of satanic child sacrifice or satanic child abuse or anything like that. In 1980, a crank wrote a book called Michelle Remembers, in which he alleged that his wife remembered when she was a child that she had been abused by some members of the Church of Satan in Vancouver. The whole book was much later exposed as a complete fabrication, including the fact that the Church of Satan never had any members in Vancouver or a unit of itself at any time there. But it planted the idea in some people's heads, and the next thing that happened, of course, was the fairly sensationalized McMartin situation in Los Angeles, where a crazy person accused the school of satanically abusing children there. And that caused a big rumpus and a lot of investigations and charges against the people of the school, all of which ultimately came to nothing because they had never abused any children there either. But these two incidents together sort of started the ball rolling, and the next thing you know, all over the United States during the 1980s were people accusing daycare centers and schools and relatives of satanic child abuse, not to mention anybody who had any remote connection with the occult. So Wiccans, for example, who called themselves white witches, or Rosicrucians, or Masons, or anybody like that who wasn't sort of straight down the line WASP, stood to be accused of some strange ritualistic child attacks, all of which, after the decade was over, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies and academic agencies, such as the National Center for child abuse, concluded that there was not a single piece of evidence that any of it had been true at all. It was all just big money scams and publicity scams, because as soon as you'd make an accusation like this, the next thing you did was go to a lawyer and file a claim or a lawsuit for millions and millions of dollars. And at the time, in the 1980s, when I saw this going on, I was a member of the Temple of Set, which is an ancient Egyptian religion. We looked at it, we thought that everybody had lost their minds, and then we just didn't pay much attention to it until, as it turned out, an Army Christian chaplain decided that my wife and I would make good suckers for this. So he fabricated an allegation against us, and one evening at our home, when we were minding our own business, the police came storming through the front door with a search warrant looking for bodies of children or things like this. Of course, they found nothing at all like that. And when they later did more of their examination of the allegations, they found out that the entire time when I could have been in San Francisco abusing or sacrificing children, I was actually sitting in a classroom in Washington, D.C. in the National Defense University, going through the resident course there. So that all came to nothing, but it got enough sensationalism that the lunatic fringe still tended to lump my name with it. You know, when mud's been thrown, some of it's there. So you see some cranks around the internet who will still try to bring that up as though there was something to it. And there's absolutely nothing to it then. There's absolutely nothing to it now. But you're asking me, what did it do in the 1980s? Well, let me answer that by going back a little bit in history to the time when I was a member of the Church of Satan, which was 1969 to 1975. That was a highly visible organization that got a lot of press attention, and those of us who were members of the priesthood found ourselves on stage all the time giving talks, interviews, and so on. In 1975, when we founded the Temple of Set, and we got completely away from Judeo-Christian mythology, and we went back to ancient Egyptian symbolism and metaphysics, one of our initial decisions was, we are going to get off the media bandwagon and just mind our own business and politely decline interviews. And this was absolutely fine from 1975 to about 1986 or 7, when this thing happened to be fabricated against me. But the flip side of that is that the public knew next to nothing about the Temple of Set. It knew all about the Church of Satan. This is Anton LaVey and his bunch of crazy people out in San Francisco. It knew absolutely nothing about the Temple of Set because we didn't prostitute ourselves in the media at all. We just minded our own business. So all of a sudden, here's this mysterious organization headed by this person who's a senior officer in the Army with a security clearance that's above top secret, a specialist in psychological warfare, and oh my God, he's a black magician. You can't get much scarier than that. So yes, I mean, I had to go on the media circuit and say yes to Oprah and yes to other major interviewers around the country, and go on television and go on radio and explain the Temple of Set and explain myself until I was blue in the face, just to straighten things out. And
it was, you know, like I said,
successful.
There's been so many people come on this show, and you know, with the satanic ritual abuse thing, they just line up for it. I don't know, true or not. I have no idea. But the one thing we were talking about this, like the Oprah interview the other day, and I think maybe Donahue or Geraldo, you were on, and the one thing that I thought was very interesting about it is the FBI or whoever the police people that were there, you would always look at them, you know, if you name the names or arrest somebody, if you arrested anybody, you're up here talking about this, why haven't you done anything about it? You know, why? And it, you know, there was always a brief answer that really didn't make sense. And I always thought that was a great attack on that, you know. Well,
exactly. I mean, something like this, there have been thousands of people in and out of the Temple of Set over the years, and there have been thousands of people in and out of the Church of Satan over the years, because neither of these organizations has been what you might call kind of pushy about trying to keep people in the fold or keep them secretive or anything like this. You can come and go as a Setian anytime you like, and it was the same way in the Church of Satan. So if we had been barbecuing kids, you know, believe me, thousands of of verifiable incidents of it would have showed up, and they just didn't, because we don't do that. And not only that, but our doctrines, both in Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible and in our own Crystal Tablet of Set, make it quite clear, that children not only aren't mistreated, but they actually play no part in this religion, because we don't believe in religious indoctrination of minors, period, either in our religion or, for that matter, in anybody else's.
Yeah.
We think that children should get a secular education in philosophy, if they wish, up until they become adults, and then they can make up their own minds. If the children of a Setian want to become a Buddhist or a Taoist or a Catholic or a Protestant, that's fine. That's fine with us.
Right.
If they want to join the Temple of Set, that's okay too, but we don't accept applications from minors, and we don't indoctrinate minors for just those reasons. We don't believe that it's proper to do that.
Right. It's and I won't mince any words. You and I are probably diametrically opposed as far as our personal philosophies like that go. But
you'd be surprised. I don't even know what religion you are, but
I'm a follower of Jesus, and not necessarily. I don't incorporate myself into the religion of Christianity, because there's a lot of corrupt stuff going on there. But I think we seem to be, in the stuff I've read, kind of libertarian minded. And, going back, we were talking about the satanic panic thing. And I think in the note you wrote back into some of the questions, you were like, that's kind of a crack thing going on. But, to me as a kid, that was kind of real. You had the music coming on, you had Motley Crue and stuff like that. You had you had the videos, and there were people in my school, whether it was emulating it or not, they were creating a satanic panic. Whether or not it was, some kind of we'll get to this later, but a psyop or something going on. But there was something going on, whether or not it was generated by the Church of Satan or the Church of Set or whatever. And I wonder, I heard another interview with you, and you were talking about leaving the Church of Satan and how they started to corporatize it. And I wonder if somehow they were injecting that into media, that vision in there, and it kind of caught on with that. I don't know what your thoughts are. But
they certainly wouldn't have injected something as sordid or terrible as child abuse in there. I mean,
right, yeah.
Anton LaVey had a great sense of humor, and he was also quite a showman. And yes, he had a lot of friends in the media, and he sort of tried to cultivate Hollywood. I myself introduced him to a friend of mine, Sammy Davis Jr., who I initiated into the Church of Satan during one of his shows right up here in Burlingame.
Wow.
Which was kind of fun, right on stage there, particularly considering that Sammy was also a Jew at the time. But I didn't hold that against him. In any case, the Church of Satan, as I said, enjoyed a certain amount of media exposure, but it was all good fun stuff, sort of like people who like horror movies. One of the honorary members of the Temple of Set was Forrest J. Ackerman down in Hollywood, who's sometimes called Mr. Science Fiction, who created Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, and was quite a personality down there. So we enjoyed the color and the sort of the exotic nature of these things in the way that you'd enjoy a good Boris Karloff movie. And believe me, when the Church of Satan got together every Friday night and held one of its services over at Anton LaVey's house or at anybody else's house, such as mine, it was a lot more fun than I bet it was going to your church, I'll tell you that. You got monsters and, torches and flames, and there's a good-looking naked woman sitting up on top of the altar. That's a little better than, the dead person that Christians usually have on their altar. So it was a blast. It was like a Halloween party, every Friday night. And it was all good fun, and it was all very lighthearted. And just kind of getting back to what you were saying a few minutes ago, we actually didn't have anything against other religions because we didn't have a chip on our shoulder. We were all very comfortable with our beliefs and our attitudes, and we didn't feel the need to dump on anybody else. When I was a college professor at Golden Gate University here in the 1980s, which I did as an adjunct professor while I was also on active duty with the Army. I taught courses in the history of Western culture, and that, of course, includes huge amounts of the history of Christianity, both Catholic and Protestant. And I became intensely familiar with, the ancient, the medieval, and the modern history of the religion. And in a funny kind of way, over the years, as I've talked to various Christians, I've usually wound up telling them more about their faith than they already knew, and helping them to be better ones. For example, you said, okay, you believe in Jesus, but if I were to ask you right now, define Jesus and explain him to me, you might be able to quote some scripture, but you'd have a very hard time saying, what is this? What is this person? If he was a person, what did he stand for? You might come up with things like the Golden Rule, but sort of other religions. But when I've asked that, I've said, look, the principle of Christ came up as a development from Judaism in which humanity was damned and lost because of the Garden of Eden episode. Adam and Eve did a bad thing. God got mad. He kicked them out of the Garden of Eden. And ever since then, they were persona non grata, and they were just sort of doomed to obey God as best they could in this life, but they were basically screwed. So Christianity came along, and the figure of Jesus is actually a way for people who believed in the Jehovah of the Judeo God originally to be redeemed, to be saved, to regain that original innocence that they had, to be loved and liked again by God or the universe. And it's done through the vehicle of what is called in Christianity grace, which means you may be too much of a sinner to redeem yourself, but the universe has the ability to forgive you all of that, and that's called grace, and it comes through the agency of this principle of pure innocence known as Jesus Christ. So Christ is a vehicle for returning you to that state of eating the apple innocence from the Garden of Eden, but not requiring you to somehow transcend Adam's original sin. But
Right.
That's the motivation for what Christianity is, and it's why people who are Christians feel a great sense of relief that Jews can't, because you've been taken off the hook.
Right. And I didn't really want to get into a huge religious discussion, but now that you talk about it, you guys believe in Set, and so how do you reconcile? I don't guess you don't have to reconcile, but how do we come together with the view of the end times? You guys, I'm sure, have a belief. I don't really understand it at all, but I'm sure you can explain it to me. But so you guys, I guess there is an afterlife portion of after you leave here, because you've got that indoctrinated in you. So how does Revelation incorporate? Like at the end of the days, are we going to be on separate sides of the big fiery pit throwing spears at each other?
Well, I would like to recommend that you or your listeners pick up a book called Testament, Testament, like the New Testament or Old Testament, by John Romer, Rohmer. He's a very distinguished archaeologist, and he's written a number of very learned books. And Testament is his history of the Bible and how it came to be written, and all of the pre-existing religions that it drew from as it came together over the centuries. And this isn't an antagonistic book. It's a scholarly book that just explains how the Bible came together, and of course it was modified over the centuries by different groups of theologians and clerics and Catholic officials and Protestant officials who would get together and say, well, this chapter goes out, this one goes in. These are apocrypha, these are valid and okay, until we come down to more or less the King James version that most of us are familiar with today. But you're dealing with, and I caution again to say here, I don't say this disrespectfully, and neither does Romer. You're dealing with a composite of a number of ancient religions that predate Judaism and Christianity, mostly Mesopotamian, but also Egyptian. For example, the name Moses is Egyptian. The word means son, like Tutmos, the son of Thoth, and so on. And the Ark of the Covenant is very much the same as many of the sacred arks that the Egyptians created, and so on. So what I'm trying to get at here is that underneath all of these religious impulses is the human question mark as to why the universe is the way it is. I mean, we know pretty much what it is, because science enables us to do that. We can figure out what the atomic structures of various things are and how they behave, and natural law is another way of saying that we have found the way to predict behavior in things so that we can predict the ways that the law of gravity will function or that electrons will move through a wire or something like this. So we know the what, and we sort of know the how, but what we don't know is the why. Why should all of this exist the way it exists at all? And probably the school of philosophy that gets most intensely into this is existentialism. Sartre and Heidegger, Kant, these people who confess themselves very much at a loss to figure out why. Why does the universe behave the way it does, and why does it look the way it does? And who are we, and what in the world are we doing here? Are we here for some kind of a mission or a moral reason? And how finite or infinite are we? Just as you asked a few minutes ago, you say, well, what happens at the end of times? If you look at time, because in the Temple of Set, for example, we spent a lot of time investigating these things, time, if you want what's sometimes called the fourth dimension, is a way of expressing the duration of an object or the duration of a relationship. For example, if a tree grows an apple, and that apple exists as an apple until somebody eats it, then it exists as an apple in a certain amount of time, or the fourth dimension, if you like, until it ceases to be an apple and becomes something else. So time is a very transitory thing, but it's a relationship thing, and it doesn't have any objective existence in itself. If you had the universe without any objects in it that could be measured moving around versus each other or flashing into existence and out with regard to each other, you wouldn't have any time at all. So one of the first questions I used to bring up to my classes at the university, not even necessarily in the Temple of Set, but just ordinary people, is I put a proposition to you that time has no existence except as a relationship of things, and as such it can extend infinitely into the past and infinitely into the future. It has no beginning, it has no end, because it's a function of other things, and those things do have beginnings and ends. So this brings us around to the question of humanity, which is, a dog or a cat probably doesn't have a religion because it just exists in a world of instinct. But you and I think about things, and we think about ourselves, and we say, who are we, and what are we doing here? Well, you have an existence, an intellectual existence that puts you apart from that entire natural universe, which is what most people think of as God. You can apprehend it, you can look out at it and see it and categorize it and visualize it and figure out its laws because you aren't in it. You're something apart from it, and you can look at it because you have a perspective upon it. If you were completely within it, you wouldn't be able to discern any difference between yourself and it. So this is a scary notion to most people, and it says, oh my God, we're outside of God. We're outside of the whole universal thing. We are freaks, and we've got to get back in. And that exactly is where that old metaphor of the Garden of Eden business comes in, and of course the function of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ and Christianity is a metaphor for getting you back in to the God universe, so that you're not a freak element apart from it that's making up your own mind and maybe screwing things up.
Right. You touched a little bit there on religion and the Bible and being we talk about that on the show, how it's evolved over time, and we talk about the element of control, and we sort of transition here just a little bit about control, and like I said, I'm a libertine. I'm very libertarian in nature. I think the Constitution is right up there with the Bible for me, because it supports the foundation of everything we do. And I really got in. I've read Mind War a couple times, and I read it again this week in preparation for the interview. And I got to looking at some of your other notes there and going back and looking, and I want to really jump into that if it's all right with you, and kind of travel and try to travel down this road.
Sure.
Because it's so relevant today. I don't know if you had any inkling when you conceived all this and put this on paper, so many years ago, that the way that things would go and how technology would have evolved. And the input of that today, and how we are potentially, under great control. I mean, possibly. I don't know if you have any involvement in that still, but we're being watched and monitored from every single angle. But in regards to Mind War itself, sometimes when I read it, I read it like 3 times this week, and I find it sometimes a little bit contradictory. And I don't mean to be argumentative. I want to really ask this question, because I think in order for me to understand it, I've really got to get down to, the part in there. What is the basis? There's a lot of talk about the truth and good, and I went back and read your other document there that you suggest in the beginning, and that you've added later on, the ethical dimension, talking about good and truth and the separation of the two. And a just war. It reminded me of a thing that I read back in college. A guy, Douglas Lackey, wrote a thing called something about peace and war. A little philosophical paper, and talking about a just war and how do we start out with that. And I guess in Mind War, when you start talking about Mind War being based in truth, what does that mean? I mean, how do we start out? Because I don't see how we can get truth out of that at all because of our leadership. So, I mean, maybe you can explain that to me.
Truth and justice are 2 different concepts, so we have to be clear what we're talking about here. Now, the reason that I wrote Mind War was frustration and annoyance at the fact that there is so much what I call phys war, or physical war, ordinary kinds of bloodthirsty war going on around the planet right now, as it has been since the first caveman beamed another one with a rock. And war does not solve problems. It is not a problem-solving device. It's a way of beating down the opposition as a result of anger or frustration, and it doesn't solve the problem that's underlying the difficulty to begin with. Wars stop because people run out of energy, they run out of assets, or they just get tired, or, of course, they may just get destroyed by the other side. But wars don't solve things. So I was saying to myself, okay, you're supposed to be smart. You're a very high-ranking initiate in the Temple of Set, which supposedly gives you a command of metaphysics. You have a PhD in political science, so the University of California thinks you're pretty smart. And you're also a psychological operations officer of the U.S. government with the highest possible levels of security clearance, so you're supposed to know all about that stuff. So why don't you put it all together and you solve this problem, and you figure out a way for people to resolve international issues without bludgeoning each other to death, blowing up their stuff, causing all this misery. So what I did was I took those things, I put them in the stew pot, I cooked them up, and I came up with Mind War, which is actually, it's a way of allowing people to get their war fix, but they don't do it by hurting anybody or destroying anything. Instead, they shift the enemy from somebody else to the problem itself. And what Mind War does is provide a number of physiological mechanisms that enable you to get together with everybody else who's interested in it and address it as coherently and as positively and non-hysterically as possible. In the context of Mind War, and this sort of goes back into a lot of the research that you were mentioning that I did, of course, when I was a government PSYOP person, the human being, the thing that is the human meat machine, that's you and me walking around, is a machine. It's an electrochemical machine. Its nerves and its synapses and its perceptive abilities, like your power of sight and your power of hearing and so on, and it functions not too much differently, rather, from the way that something like an automobile functions. It just is the product of what goes into it and what comes out of it. So what Mind War does is to figure out what is going into it haphazardly or negatively, and switch those things around so that instead of making things worse, they make things better. So all of the psychological control mechanisms, or psychons, that are part of a mind war campaign don't tell you what to think. They just change your disposition slightly so that you're looking for good and helpful ways to think instead of maddening, angry, mindless ways to think. And from that point on, it falls back into human intelligence. And that goes into the parapolitics side of it, which is also in the book there, which follows up on Plato's notion of kalopagotheia, which is the idealized way to construct the best possible political system. And that's probably one of the more complex areas of the book, but it has to do with how you go about building an idealized society that's fair and just and good for people. So that was the motive behind writing Mind War.
Yeah.
And to my pleasure, most of the people who have read it pick up on that just fine, and they don't get all scared that it's got something to do with spooky mind control, because as I go into it in the book and I explain how your mind works through this business called thought architecture, 95% of your thinking processes are subconscious. Okay, this is a scientific fact. 5% of your thoughts are at the conscious level. The rest of it is all what they call pattern thinking, which means that your senses are pulling this stuff in and feeding it all into pre-existing subconscious patterns of reality that you've developed through your entire life. And you make your judgments concerning what is real or not real, or significant or not significant at the subconscious level. A little bit like when you approach an intersection and there's traffic lights there, you don't have to stop and think about what red, yellow, and green mean. The fact that it's red, yellow, and green takes place at the subconscious level, and you just sort of know when you're going to go and stop. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
I'm saying. That's a very elementary example. But this is that we are machines that process an enormous amount of information through the electromagnetic spectrum, and we are aware of almost none of this. And when this is the sort of a funny thing. I said in the book that at one point I said, if the government realized or had the slightest idea about some of the stuff that is going on in this book would have been classified way above top secret because it's that significant.
Yeah.
But they don't know about this because I'm the first person that actually sat and wrote all this stuff down. To me, this is very straightforward and very honest and very argumentative. That's why I made the book available to everybody. I didn't just circulate it in the government, although I have sent a number of copies out through the government so that they can learn from this.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I know that you mentioned in the preamble or the introduction there about the conspiratorial nature, how it's been used, and I don't really get that from it. You make some references like to the psychotronic what warfare and ELF and MK Ultra, and those are kind of keywords that set some people off. Those are all valid things, but I don't think they have. They're sort of underlying in the paper. They're not really. I don't think the core of what you were trying to get to.
They were the things that you mentioned, like MK Ultra, MK Naomi, and so on. Those were all efforts by the CIA and occasionally the Defense Department to come up with some kind of a mind control device, sort of like a remote control hypnotism, like you saw in the movie The Manchurian Candidate. And without exception, these were lunatic efforts. These were completely stupid because, as I just said to you a moment ago, 95% of us goes on at the subconscious level, and you can't program that unless you're going to program everything that is going into somebody in terms of the electromagnetic spectrum, which Mind War does discuss, but which the U.S. government hasn't the faintest idea, and nor does civil society. So the most that you see in the government was fooling around with chemical things, like giving people some LSD and seeing if that would make somebody more susceptible to suggestion. Well, it doesn't. It just scrambles your brain.
Right.
I mean, this stuff is absolutely stupid.
Well,
and if I had been an adult back in the days when the CIA was screwing around with MK Ultra, I'd have said, you guys are not only wasting your time, but you're making yourselves look like idiots because you're not paying attention to the way that the human body and its brain actually function.
Do you think that the result of MK Ultra was a direct result from the paperclip thing, the Germans and all that? Do you think it would just overflow from that, or do you think it was something else that came up after that point?
Well, the Germans weren't stupid enough to, I'm sorry to say it, the Germans weren't stupid enough to do something like MK Ultra or to try it. What we sucked from paperclip was mostly their hard science work when they were working with aeronautics and guided missile systems, like von Braun and the V-2 rockets and stuff. So we were sucking their hard scientists, so paperclip was as many German scientists as we can steal versus all the ones that the Russians can steal. And the Russians got most of the ones that had to do with heavy lift systems, and we got most of the ones that had to do with miniaturization, which is why when we got around to those early space programs, the Russians came up with all these big booster rockets that could lift all kinds of stuff up there, and we came up with much smaller rockets that had to lift lighter payloads and miniaturization stuff. So, and in the meantime, you have people like Werner von Braun, who was happily building V-2 rockets to drop bombs on London. And next thing you know, he's introducing rockets on Walt Disney. Right. Which, makes you scratch your head. But I mean, that's what paperclip was all about. It was scientific theft, but it had really nothing to do with the MK Ultra stuff. That was completely off the wall, zany stuff that started up pretty much back in the late 50s and early 60s, about the same time as you had the development of things like LSD and so on. Yeah,
you forgive me for jumping around here. I want to get back to mine in a second, but while we're on the paperclip thing, do you think, I don't understand, not paperclip, but MK Ultra. I'm just an old hillbilly here trying to figure this stuff out myself, but this why did they release all the pictures and stuff? I mean, that was just awful. Why didn't they keep that suppressed? Is that part of some kind of a weird psyop that they were pushing that out? I mean, you look at some of the pictures of like MK Ultra, the people laying in the bed that says strain the urine, and the little girl has got the mind of an infant, I mean, why in the world would you put that stuff out? I don't get that.
I'd have to scratch my head too. I mean, at the time that the U.S. government was screwing around with MK Ultra and the previous programs like that, I was still a kid in high school, and I didn't know anything about any of this stuff until much later when you had all the congressional investigations come out. But I'm saying to you that it always, from the day one, it struck me, just as it does now, as I said, that the CIA may have been flailing around with this stuff, trying to see if they could come up with a way to create mind robots. But it was stupid. It was dumb. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist. You call yourself a hillbilly. Well, it wouldn't have been too hard for you to look at this stuff that they were doing. You say, what's the matter with you people? This doesn't work. Yeah. Look, I'm also a stage magician, all right? I'm a life member of the Magic Castle down in Hollywood.
Oh, man, you know Magic Matt Allen then. I used to listen to this show a lot on Saturday nights. You know that guy?
Well, sure. I mean, stage magic is a perfect example of how easy it is to manipulate human perceptions, to make people see things that aren't there or not see things that are there in front of their eyes because you know how thoughts function and how the human senses function. That's what stage magic is all about. So I would have told, the people in the CIA and Stanford Research Institute and all these other banana head types, who are getting yourselves all wrapped around with this ESP crap and the rest of it. For goodness sake, will you please go down to Hollywood and take some classes at the Magic Castle and learn what works and what doesn't so that you don't make jerks of yourselves.
Yeah, no doubt.
And, they don't. But, I mean, if I were running the PSYOP program today at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, so help me, I would have a section of the course where people were shipped down to Los Angeles and spent a few weeks at the Magic Castle to learn all those very useful techniques about the way the brain functions and the way human senses function.
Well, in my personal, what I really draw out of Mind War is that I'm going to read this passage. Just bear with me, but it's as you start talking to narrow the effect of psychotronic weapons of it. It says, but through the media possessed by the United States, which have the capabilities to reach virtually all the people all over the earth. I'm paraphrasing this as I go through. The media are, of course, the electronic media, the television, and the radio. Using that as the mind war. So I guess I submit to you, are you talking about that? And you're talking about truth and getting to that. So when we start talking about using a mind war to not only take in the mind of the enemy, and I can go with that. Hey, listen, man, they're the enemy. If we're fighting a war, let's get them. Let's get them all, man. But if we're trying to bring in the citizen of the United States who has the rights under the Constitution, maybe not. We can argue that some other time. But if we're not fighting a just war to begin with. And I'll use, you're a Vietnam guy. I mean, a lot of people look back now and look at Vietnam as a big mistake. And we look at this and we start using the media to bend the truth or to come up with the truth. I mean, what is the truth at that point, I guess?
Okay, here's a good thing. It's very hard, and I caution everybody that I've always worked with, it's very hard to know what the truth is because basically there's so much bullshit around.
Yes.
And, I mean, the first thing, I went through the PSYOP officer's course in 1969, shortly after I was a second lieutenant in the Army. And the first thing you learn is that 99% of everything that is out there as a factual source telling you the truth about things is bullshit, okay? Mm-hmm. It's somebody's version of what the truth is because they have an angle. As Grace Slick of the Jefferson Airplane once said to me, Mike, everybody's trying to sell you their shorts, okay? And that's it. I mean, whether you talk to a communist or a capitalist, or whether you talk to the CIA, or you talk to the FBI, or you talk to the New York Times, everybody is trying to sell you their shorts, and you have to find the truth out for yourself, and you have to be very demanding about it if you're going to base any kind of program on it. So what I'm doing when you asked me a few minutes ago, you said, well, when you use these mind war psychons and you were going to reach out to everybody, what are you talking about? Well, there's a part there where, for example, I discuss brainwaves. And if you're in an area that is saturated by beta waves, your brain will tend to resonate with those and pick up on it and put you in a beta state, which makes you nervous and jumpy. If you are in an area that is saturated with alpha, you'll tend to be relaxed, bright, positive, friendly, okay? And all these things are at the subsonic level, which means that if I felt like calming everybody down, all in the Middle East, both our guys and the other guys, I would take a geosynchronetic satellite and put it right over the middle of the whole thing and have it broadcast into every electronic media down there, a hell of a lot of alpha, so that anytime anybody turned on their radio, picked up the phone, used their electric shaver, anything like this, they would get a dose of alpha, and their brains would tend to shift in that direction. So you would get a lot of angry, pissed off, uncooperative, unhelpful people. I don't care which side. Everybody. Suddenly you would get them.
I think somebody might be doing that to me now.
Well, I could if I were being funny. I could have taken an audio frequency generator, put it on this phone, dialed this thing to alpha, and said, "Okay, I'm going to sweeten up this interviewer here." And he doesn't even know it's happened. And more than that, the alpha would go through out into your listening audience. And they wouldn't know it either, so they'd all say, gee, what a bunch of nice guys are on the phone here.
Do you not think that somebody's doing that now? Do you think that someone has not figured that out?
Because neither the government nor commercial advertising is smart enough to do this. A lot of this stuff that I discuss in Mind War, neither the commercial sector nor the government is smart enough to do it yet. If it were, I wouldn't have had to write the book, or I would have written it in a much different way. And one of the big issues that I had with myself was, do I really want to write all this stuff up and tell everybody about it? It's a little bit like the scientists who got together in the Manhattan Project and created the atomic bomb. They thought they were doing something really good. Well, we're going to come up with a weapon that we're going to do it before the Germans do it, for one thing, but we're also going to come up with a weapon that's so dangerous that it'll force all wars to end. Well, they sort of did that, but they paid a big price for it, which is now that we are sitting here, we are in the middle of a nuclear proliferated world, And we are just terribly, terribly lucky that some jerk somewhere hasn't pushed a button and blown us all to atoms.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I wrote a book like this, I was taking a big chance, and the only reason that I took the big chance is because I have such a horror of the huge amount of physical war that's going on around the planet right now. There's an enormous amount of death and destruction going on. I just can't stand that if I can do anything to stop it. And I said, I bet I can come up with a way for people to solve problems without putting a bullet in each other and without bombing somebody or blowing something up.
Well,
all the way back in 1967, when I was an ROTC cadet in college and I first heard about the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center at Fort Bragg, I signed up for their extension course in psychological operations as an ROTC cadet, and I took it there before I was even commissioned. And the reason I did that is because I was saying to myself, my gosh, there's actually a place in the Army that doesn't want to kill people with bullets. It wants to argue them into cooperation. I think that's cool. And my biggest complaint over the years has been that it's been so inept at it and so old-fashioned and so stupid about it, like the rest of the government.
Yeah,
I would like to say to you that there's other things as smart as Mind War that have been written out there, but there aren't.
I get it. I get that place that you're coming from there to stop war, because you during this time, I mean, I grew up during the 80s and the Soviet Union, the big Soviet threat, us versus them kind of thing. And you had all this stuff going on at the same time, but you write in your in Mind War there, the constraint of this whole thing is the strictest, most enlightened principles of humanity have to manage this whole thing,
it absolutely has to. I come from Plato, who said that if you allow him to be so, the normal human being is a benevolent person, and he's not an angry or a hateful person. And if you just give him a chance, and that was Plato talking, not me.
Right.
And I'm a Platonist. I mean, I happen to buy into what he said, but it's a big if. I'm taking the chance that if you give people a chance, they would like to be nice to one another instead of assholes.
Right.
So that's what Mind War is trying to do. It's trying to give them a chance to be cooperative with one another and not just be stupid and try to address problems by blowing each other up. That's exactly why I wrote that damn book.
Yeah, no, I get it. I from a philosophical standpoint, I think it's a brilliant idea. From a practical standpoint, though, let's talk about it from that standpoint. I read in the introduction. I guess that was, if I got this wrong, I'm sure you'll let me know. But the neutron bomb, the paper that you wrote, that was part of your dissertation, I believe, right?
It was my dissertation, yes, on the neutron bomb.
And I read the beginning of that, and I kind of chuckled because, you wrote something there like, I'm paraphrasing again, shoe leather and library card, the note cards they take in the library. I thought, man, you have to be at a certain age to actually get that one. I've created a lot of those myself. But things have changed, I don't even know if they do that in school anymore. Take go to the library and write down the note cards and stuff like that. Some people out there listening will be like, what's this guy talking about?
You just cut and paste on the internet.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, when you look at stuff that's going on now, like with the internet and the media and all the media that's out here, we're not talking about the big guys, Fox and CNN or whatever, the left-right paradigm, but just the influx of all this stuff. Can it ever be controlled?
Well, some governments have been able to control the access of people in their countries to the certain parts of the internet. They can block certain websites, and they can, if they find people who are blogging in ways they don't like, they can go out and arrest them and lock them away, and things like this. But you're quite right when you say that the internet is a big sea of information, and a lot of it is very unstructured, and it's very hard to go out there and figure out for yourself, well, who's telling the truth, who's bullshitting, and you just sort of, unfortunately, there's no easy standard. I can't point you at any one website or Wikipedia or anything else that I can say, well, these guys are reliable.
Oh wait, patriotoutlaws.com.
No,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, you've got to figure it out for yourself. There's no easy answers, and you have to be very skeptical. And when I was a brand new psychological operations officer in the Army, that's the first thing they said. Look, there is no easy standard of truth out there, including from our own government. You have to work this out for yourself. and you have to be very, very pragmatic as to if you come up with a propaganda theme or a campaign and you're trying to change people's minds, that you just don't wind up making things worse because you had your head up your ass when you were putting this together.
Yeah.
And the best psychological operations people, the best AI people, have never lost track of that warning, and we're very, very cautious about trying to say that this or that, theme or ideology or statement or propaganda claim is to be trusted. As soon as somebody says, "Trust me," it should send your warning, antenna up, and you should say, "Well, I'm not so sure I want to trust you, but I'll hear you out. Let's put it that way, and then I'll see if I can figure out whether it seems to make sense or not." And indeed, if you were talking about the introduction. Well, if you go to the afterword of Mind War, it was written by William Anderson, who's a very distinguished MD who works in the area of mental illness and things like this. And one of his criticisms in the afterword to my own book right there is that I think that Mike has too much optimism here. He's putting too much trust in people that they can use these tools and not fuck it up.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing him. His voice is the voice of sanity, because a little bit like the people who developed the atomic bomb, I'm putting a big piece of information that nobody knew about before in the hands of everybody, the public, the government, and so on. And I'm taking a big risk that they aren't going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
Okay? All I know is that the current situation, to me, where there's so much misery and death and destruction in the world, is intolerable to me. So I put this out as one way to address it, and I also said at the end of the introduction, this is the first step. I want to open up the door to people thinking out of the box, thinking of new ways to solve problems that don't involve the creation of more misery and destruction. So go to it, okay? So I'm very happy with that. If somebody comes up and writes a better book than Mind War the day after tomorrow, I'll be the first person to applaud. But I wanted to start the ball rolling someplace.
Right,
So
yeah.
there's a little, if somebody once said, if you're walking on the beach and you see a starfish there that's on the beach, and you pick him up and you throw him back into the ocean, have you done a great thing for Mother Nature? Well, I don't know, but you've done something for that starfish. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do. If Mind War saves one life someplace, somewhere, it justifies writing the whole damn book.
Well, how does personal freedom and that fit into there? I mean, how do you reconcile that in there? Because that's really the problem I have with any kind of we start talking about Mind War and putting out a message, and that's where I depart from you with that.
Well, you don't have a whole. You may think that you have a lot of personal freedom.
Touche.
Take it from me, you don't, because you are the product of a lot of subconscious things coming into your mind all the time that you're not aware of, that basically construct what reality is for you, and based on what you perceive reality to be, that makes up your mind for you, whether or not you behave in this way or that way. So the first thing you have to do, like Mind War says, is learn about all those different things that are coming into your brain, and the different frequencies and magnetism levels and colors and all the rest of it that are influencing the way you process information, and raise those from the unconscious level to a level where you know what's coming into you and why you have the moods and attitudes that you do. Once you've got that part of it figured out, then you're in a position to make discretionary decisions based on morality, and that's where good and evil and right and wrong and things like that come into it. But the first thing you have to do is get all the clutter out of the way that's sort of pushing you in certain directions that you aren't aware of. And that's what Mind War is trying to do, is get rid of all the crud first. And then it says, now, once that's out of the way, we get into the Kalakagathia part of it, which is coming up with the agathon, or the best possible solution that everybody can sit down and agree upon. That's where philosophy and political science and Ragavan Iyer's parapolitics all come into play, so that people can come up with a good, working, best possible, and I emphasize that all through the book, best possible solution, which doesn't mean everybody has to like it. It just means it's the best thing we can all sit down and agree on to come up with that we can live with. All right?
Yeah.
And we can worry about the perfection later on. Right now, we just want to stop hurting everybody else and sit down and get cooperative. And come up with the best practical thing we can, which is what Plato called the agathon. So you'll see that word agathon all over the place in the book because it's sort of the ground zero thing that we're looking for here.
Do you take any personal steps, measures, countermeasures for in case there is someone? I mean, do you use TV, internet, or do you abstain from all that? Just stick to books.
Well, I mean, I have an email account. I go on the web occasionally and look for information and things like this, but I'm not what you might call a techie in any sense. I'm an academician. I'm a scientist and a scholar, and I take information where I can find it. But I'm pretty sharp about detecting bullshit. I mean, that's one of the things that I got from all my history and my experience and my education in psychological operations and propaganda and all that. And it's given me a big bullshit meter.
Your meter must be going off the scale tonight here talking to me.
No. I mean, your questions and your comments are very straightforward and very rational and very common sense. I mean, we're both talking common sense here tonight. I don't think either one of us has said anything tonight that your listeners are going to say, oh, geez, that guy's really off the wall. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
No, we're talking plain vanilla stuff here. We're talking things that anybody should be able to figure out for himself. The big secrets aren't big secrets. They are straightforward and they are easy to figure out. Plato wrote an entire dialogue called the Meno about to illustrate the fact that a slave boy in Athens could figure out just as much about reality as Socrates could. And the whole dialogue explains that and justifies it and shows why if you take an intelligent human being and you give him access to unstructured information, he will usually work his way through it to something that makes sense.
As a guy who, I'm going to make an assumption here, as a high-ranking officer in the military throughout the 80s and, or before that, I imagine you spent a lot of your career addressing the Soviet threat. And as I was reading through the Ethical Dimension, the book you got here, you make some great and very, very thought-provoking things here. I mean, there's a little paragraph here about the capitalist and communist communications and how that when the communists and the capitalists talk, that the communists, they think that they're just the capitalists so stupid they really just placate them and basically operate in a role of deception. So rolling that forward, that little thought there, that little nugget that you threw at us in the book. How do you perceive right now Russia and where they stand in the world? I mean, it seems that they have totally flipped their positioning. Putin is a strong man. Almost he's portrayed in the media and even alternative media as a beacon of freedom. I mean, how do you take all that in?
Okay, you got to look at Russia historically. Now, this is a country. It's both a small country and a big one. It looks very big geographically, but actually, its areas of population and sort of concentration are kind of small in the western areas. Moscow and St. Petersburg and a few areas like that. The rest of it's mostly ice, and Siberian tigers and stuff like that. It's not much fun. But here's the thing with Russia. It has been invaded over and over and over again over the last several hundred years, and every time somebody's gone into it, they have done horrible things to it. In other words, it was the Teutonic Knights, and then it was Napoleon, and then it was Adolf Hitler. You've heard about World War II in Europe, and the British and the Americans and D-Day and all this. How many German divisions did we take on? Do you know?
Oh God, I have no idea.
20.
Yeah,
20. Do you know how many divisions of the Waffen-SS and the Wehrmacht the Russians took on?
Many, many more.
200.
Yes.
I mean, they lost 30 million people in that war.
Yeah.
It was a horror. It was a bloodbath. So if the United States had a history, anything like that, we would be paranoid as hell. about everybody else.
Right.
We don't want anybody anywhere near our borders who has the slightest attitude, you know. So the minute, for example, that Ukraine had this little coup, you know, a year or so ago and got in this sort of a neo-fascist, almost neo-Nazi government, alarm bells go off in Moscow. We aren't going to do that again.
Right.
All right? We are going to spike these people's guns right from day one so they don't even think of causing us any more crap. So what I'm sort of getting at here is that Russia is a very paranoid country and culture because it has a right to be. It has been terribly treated over the centuries in a way that the United States, for example, can't even begin to imagine. When's the last time we got invaded by Canada? and hundreds of thousands of Americans or millions of Americans were exterminated by Canadians or Mexicans, you know, or somebody like that. I don't think you can come up with that.
No.
We've been pretty antiseptic over here, you know. And we simply don't have a bad time of it. I mean, I think we got a little upset when in the War of 1812 the British burned the White House or something, you know. But we got over it, okay. But in any case, the United States does not really know what it is to experience that kind of massacre level of hurt. But the Russians do, and that's one of the reasons that Russia behaves the way it does. And I don't care whether you call it communism or you call it Putin's version of a sort of an oligarchy. The Russians are the Russians, and the Russians look out at the world and they see everybody else as having done damage to Russia over the years, and they don't want any more of that. Okay, so every time they smell something that looks as though it might threaten them, they get antsy and they get nervous. So right now, for example, you look at the election business, you know, and here's Hillary saying, well, I'm not going to let the Russians get away with anything. Okay. Well, no wonder the Russians...
As long as their checks clear the bank, she'll let them get away.
Sure. Well, and Trump is saying, well, I'm not going to let the Russians get away with anything either, but I don't think that Putin is such a bad guy because he's probably a lot like me.
Yeah, just keep sending me the
closer to the truth than you think about it.
Just keep sending me the good-looking women, right?
Yeah, something like that. So, I don't think that I mean, I've met and I've spoken with a lot of Russians over the years. You know, and not just Russians in the United States, but Russians who were Russians, who knew that I was an officer, you know, with the United States and with NATO and stuff. And we all talk very frankly and bluntly the same way that I'm talking to you tonight. And they say we don't, you know, the United States, we don't trust it because it tends to fly off the handle and demonize us and threaten us, and it's got all these missiles pointed at us. And I said, well, you got the same amount of missiles pointed at us. And Khrushchev comes out and says, we're going to bury you, you know. What do you think we're going to think? And I said, this is all a big mistake of the people who invented the damn atomic bomb in the first place. And if either of us have any brains, we're going to try and get rid of those things so that some idiot somewhere doesn't push a button.
Yeah.
And I don't have any more confidence in Hillary than I do in Donald Trump that either one of them fully realizes just how dangerous nuclear weapons are. They are terrible.
Yeah, well, you know, that's a great point. And you know, I was one of the things that I got a kick out of it. One of the little things in your in this the book here, Ethical Dimension, and, you know, the separation of ethics and politics. And you wrote, until this point in human history, ethics and politics were inseparable. What happened to us? How did we end up with these two people running for the presidency of the United States, arguably the most powerful nation in the world, with the biggest arsenal in the world? I mean, what's going on here? Have we been under a mind war? Is this the result of it? I mean, that's a big question.
This is. I mean, I wish I could say that there's a sophisticated mind war or something campaign here, but there isn't. What you've got here is something on a much more brutal and stupid level, which is basically a plutocracy, which is government by the moneyed interests. And they're interested in whoever's going to give them the biggest bottom line on their balance sheets, and they don't care if it causes death and destruction. They just don't care.
Right.
All they're interested in is their stock prices, their dividends, and you know, whether they can enrich themselves more. And anything beyond that is a statistic to them, not something human and not something that they should feel anything for. And I would say that in terms of that, both Hillary and Trump are plutocrats. They both live in a world of rich, moneyed interests. Neither one of them is what I would call an authentic populist in the way that, say, Bernie Sanders was. And maybe is, I'm not sure.
Well, I think his actions have proven him not to be exactly what he said he was.
No, I mean, for one thing, after coming up and making a big populist statement on all these principles for such a long time, he turns around and sells out to Hillary a couple of evenings ago.
Yes.
And there are a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters who are saying, WTF!
Right.
We've been hearing from you that this is exactly everything that you were fighting against for the last year, and suddenly you kiss this woman's ass.
Yeah.
And sure, if I were a Sanders supporter, I'd be pretty pissed.
Yeah.
I haven't looked into Bernie Sanders' mind or tried to, so I'm not sure how phony he is or how sincere he is. Occasionally, you see people come along who talk pretty straight. I like to hear Ralph Nader talk. I like to hear Ross Perot talk when he was talking to us. There are people who can be very straightforward and very frank speakers on either side. I don't care whether they're liberals or conservatives. Aesthetically, the question is: are these people talking to you straightforwardly, or are they trying to sell you their shorts?
Yeah, yeah.
And if they're trying to sell you their shorts, I'm not interested.
Yeah. So one thing I think that I really like reading this the debates that you have in here and the contradictions between us and the Russians, and then you have a chapter in there about basically German and Western thought. What would you, if you were to add a chapter to that right now, something that's very relevant? What would you add in there for let's say radical Islam and our ethical beliefs? How would we ever get involved in that? Is there any solution to that?
Well, Islam is all these religions, I don't care whether it's Hinduism or it's Islam or it's Judaism or it's Christianity, you can take any one of these things and you can selectively cherry pick parts of it to make it sound very sweet and harmless or really nasty. Christianity over the centuries has a really bloody record, including things like the 30 Years' War, where almost a third of the population of continental Europe died because the Catholics and the Protestants couldn't get along with each other. And you had, of course, the Holocaust situation where people, not just the Germans, but an awful lot of other people, were trying to kill off as many Jews as they could because they didn't like Jews, And we're all these are people who are all worshiping the same God, right? Supposedly.
Yeah.
But it's the same God that Abraham supposedly picked, way back when, and then everybody went off in different directions and started killing each other. So Islam was never an issue or a problem until around the early 1990s. I'm an Eisenhower-era kid. I was born in 1946. I never heard of any Islamic terrorism the whole time it was going. Everybody was jerking off about communism. And my parents' generation was jerking off about fascism and Nazism. And nobody cared about, if you thought of Islam, you were thinking of nice Arabs like Lawrence of Arabia. Okay?
Hillary's America.
Rambo 3 had Al-Qaeda as the good guys, because back then they were still our people, and not the other guys' people.
Right.
And shortly after Rambo 3 came out, we switched around, and now they weren't the good guys anymore, the bad guys. Okay. So I'm saying that I don't consider Islam itself a bad religion any more than I consider Christianity or Judaism a bad religion. I'm saying that there are people who can take some of its themes and ideas and twist them and make them bad, and we are going to be stuck with that as long as people have mass religions.
Do you think
we don't do that, incidentally, in the Temple of Set, because, as I've sometimes said, the Temple of Set is kind of like herding cats. And there are no two Setians who agree on anything. And if you had anybody who came in and tried to say, this is the way you should think, everybody else would give them a Bronx cheer, because we're all figure it out for yourself kind of people. So that's a big difference there. But most religions are obedience things, where a priest or a minister or a mullah or somebody like this tells you what you're supposed to think and how you're supposed to interpret things morally, and you're supposed to shut up and believe what they say and do what they say. And that's always a way to court disaster, because sooner or later you come up with somebody who does it or says it for the wrong reasons, and then away you go.
So as an Eisenhower guy, that era of God, and with the illustrious career you've had in the military, how do you feel about the military-industrial complex?
I agree with Ike. I think it sucks. I think that they should be disconnected, and in the area, for example, I've spent a lot of time working in the intelligence community with the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency and others. And whenever I've been talking with people in the CIA and they say, "What do you think about the CIA?" I said, "I think you guys should be 100% the way you were originally supposed to be, which is an intelligence gathering agency, and that's it. I don't think you should be involved in screwing with other people's governments or trying to stage coups or assassinate anybody or do anything active like that. I think you're an information gathering information agency, and that's what you should. That's your job, and that's what you should do. And once you've found out the information, then you should give it to the regular decision makers in the government and let them do their job, which is to decide what to do with it." That's what intelligence agencies are supposed to be, and instead we've got these running wild things who really are responsible to nobody except themselves. And I've been very frank with that, and there are a lot of people in the CIA who agree with me and who think that it should be an intelligence agency, period. It should go out and get information. Yeah. The whole point of an intelligence agency is that other countries and other interests around the world have a certain amount of information that they make freely available, and then they have a certain amount of stuff that they want to hide, and it's usually for the bad reasons. So an intelligence agency exists to go find that stuff and drag it out into the open.
Yeah, and it comes down to money and greed. Our CIA, I think, is operating, a lot of black projects that they're funding, through drug trade or whatever. I mean, Afghanistan, we've all seen the videos of them, guarding the poppy fields over there. I mean, and that's just a deplorable thing. And that's getting corrupt into the system where, your whole philosophy of stopping violence is not going to exist under that realm. And as long as that exists, the other piece is never going to fall into place.
Well, sure. As long as you bring... when I was talking a little earlier about plutocracy, which is a government by money, and unfortunately that's what you see, driving us to a very large extent right now, and that controls things like that and the drug trade and stuff. I was listening to a rather bright guy in the news commentary show the other night. I forget what station, but he said, if we want to end the drug problems in the United States right now, all we have to do is legalize the damn things so that they're available at a reasonable price at your corner drugstore.
Yeah.
You will disappear the entire illegal industry. You will disappear immediately, the gangs, the rip-offs, the bad stuff.
Yeah, and
all of that will disappear.
And supplied at the highest dosage possible. If the people want to use it till they kick off whatever belief they have on the other, they can just do it.
As long as they do it under the control of their, under the guidance of their family doctor.
Yeah.
Who cares? But I mean,
yeah.
We went all through this once. We did it with prohibition. We did it with booze, and we should have learned something from that, because as soon as we made booze illegal, all you did was you created the Al Capones, and the Johnny Torrios and the mafia, and you had all these machine gun wars in Chicago and the rest of it. And it all went on until we legalized booze again, and then all that disappeared, because now you could just go buy a bottle of booze at your corner drugstore again.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up another stuff. This is a little more current events kind of thing, but I know you've probably heard about the Pokemon thing and the geospatial intelligence gathering they're doing through that. And, it reminded me of something that I wanted to ask you about. Last year they had the Jade Helm thing down in Texas. Conspiracy world was on fire with it, And from what I gathered, it was geospatial intelligence gathering as well. I mean, what do you make of that? Gathering this stuff with the video and mapping through Google. What do you think the end game of that is?
Well, I confess, I'm not sure if I know it by the same name you're referring to it as. So
Yeah.
Explain to me a little bit what you're referring to here.
Well, Jade Helm was a military exercise that Special Forces, Green Berets, and the Navy SEALs last year in Texas were doing, and they were making a big deal out of it, martial law in Texas. But what really resulted from it was a very a dark by night thing with small groups going around, and then it came out a little bit later that they weren't really doing a exercise for martial law. It was really to gather geospatial intelligence, which is sort of filming an area, like gathering stuff and visual information, like where you have, you use Google Maps and Google Earth where you see, the street and your house from above, and kind of a more personal version of that. And this whole Pokemon phenomenon that just kind of exploded onto the scene a couple weeks ago, there's, the guy who actually programmed that has got ties to the NSA, and it got ties to the CIA, and was one of the few investors originally in Facebook, and I think his original was not PayPal. Yeah, PayPal. Yes, he was PayPal guy, and he this program that he come up with that everybody's going around filming. There's you can say it's conspiracy theory, and I think sometimes that term is used derogatorily in a wrong kind of way, because it is a conspiracy if they're trying to gathering data and collecting it from people personally just walking around playing this game, whether it to see the inside of your house. I don't know what the end game is. I guess that's my question to you. What in the world would they be doing with all this information?
Well, I'm not specifically familiar with the program per se. I mean, I haven't had anybody ask me about it, and I haven't been involved with it in any way that I'm But if what you're saying is, am I concerned at all about the collection of kinds of things that go on Google Earth? No. I don't mind being able. I go on Google Earth, and it's kind of fun to go down and look at the ruins of the Titanic, and to go to and to go down to Area 51 and walk around the streets there and things like this. I enjoy technology like that. I went onto Google Earth, and I went down in front of my own house here, and they had a photograph of me loading some stuff into the back of my car. When it just happened to be the day when I was doing that, when the Google Earth camera took a shot. So
you shouldn't have said that. Somebody out there is going to Photoshop you loading a bunch of bodies in the back of a hearse.
No, I was actually going to the gym at the time, so I was in my gym talk. So if they want to look at my bony knees, they can. But I'm just saying that the gathering of raw information per se tends not to disturb me so much one way or the other. I guess, in part, and this is sort of a bit of a personal experience thing, because, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I've had a security clearance way up above top secret through my entire career, to levels where they don't even identify the clearance anymore. It's so high. And before you get those kinds of clearances, believe me, your whole life is a microscope. I mean, they look up your ass, okay?
Literally, right?
Yes, and they do it all the time, and they do it regularly. One of the reasons that I was never at all really concerned about the whole satanic abuse thing was I said, oh, hell, my life is an open book, and always has been. And believe me, if anybody had ever seen anything like that going on, I would be so far underground at Leavenworth, you would never ever see me again. I said, so I wouldn't have kept those clearances, for one thing.
All right. So as
I'm just saying that I've always said, go ahead and look at me. I don't care.
So
the more that the U.S. government looks at me, the more it won't make up its mind on bad information.
Right.
So I've never been one who really worried about that. When people say, "Oh, I'm concerned because the government is looking at my personal stuff," I always say, "Well, so what are you worried about? If you're not doing anything wrong, if you're cheating on your taxes, then maybe you've got something to worry about.
Yeah. Well,
if you're not, then who cares? And a lot of these people, I think, who yell the loudest, are actually kind of hoping that the government cares enough about them that it actually is going to be looking at them. I think they'd get their feelings hurt if they found they didn't have any kind of an FBI file.
All right. So great. That's true. Very true. So I'm going to get you off here. I got a couple more. They've been emailing me some questions. Like I said, it was controversial getting you on here. People are like, "Oh, why are you getting him on here?" You know, like I said, we've had all sides of this argument. It's been a pleasure. It's been really fun talking to you. It really has. I've really enjoyed it. Just as we get off here, in case I let you go and don't say that. But somebody asked, about the I don't even know how to pronounce it. The Welsberg Castle, the ritual you performed there. Yes. What was going on? Because we had Russ Dizdar was on this show, and you may not know the guy, but he spoke about that. He's a preacher guy, and he said that you were bringing in the demonic thing, and I've read that you performed something there. I'm just curious what that was.
Sure, and I'll tell you. Anybody who wants to go on Amazon and look up my name, and you'll see a number of books that I've written, and one of them is entitled "We Break the Sword," which is a mind war novel that has to do with mind war technology as it might have been used to stop World War II around 1940. And part of it is set at the Wewelsburg, with which I'm very familiar, so there's a lot of Wewelsburg information right there. But this has to do, of course, with the SS and Heinrich Himmler's personal interest in ancient Germanic and European history and mythology. He was a great devotee of Grail legends, and he wanted his own Grail castle. This is the Grail as in the Holy Grail, such as the castle that is the centerpiece of Wagner's operas, Parsifal and so on. And he looked around Germany looking for the best site for a personal Grail castle that he could customize that way, and he settled on the Wewelsburg up in Westphalia. And it was quite a mystical experience. You might say it was, if you'll pardon the comparison, it's a little bit like Walt Disney deciding that he wanted a castle in the middle of Disneyland as a centerpiece. So Heinrich Himmler wanted his own Disneyland castle, you might say, and he took over the Wewelsburg. Being Heinrich Himmler, he was able to get it at $1 a month, which is a pretty good rental.
Yeah.
Or a mark a month or something like this. And then he redesigned a great many of the rooms in it as chambers, as I've described them there, for certain kinds of experimental workings or ritual workings or just themes. I mean, his own suites there had a lot of emphasis on Henry I, the ancient Teutonic king of Germany, Henry the Fowler, sometimes called, because Heinrich Himmler was a great admirer of his and wanted to develop a suite that was sort of themed after him. So I visited the castle in, I think it was 1982, and did in fact inspect all those old chambers and areas, and I conducted a magical working in one of them, the Valhalla as it's called, which is sort of at the base of the keep tower, which is described in my book, The Temple of Set, in complete detail. And it was a very fascinating experience, because how often do you find a piece of what you might call mythical fantasy, such as the Grail Castle of Wagner's Parsifal, and then you find that somebody actually tried to realize it, So, Heinrich Himmler did not have a sinister purpose in mind when he built the castle or constructed it. He had a personal fantasy that was very Wagnerian in mind. He just didn't really have the opportunity to finish it before World War II got in the way. That's all.
All right, so I got another question for you. Do you watch Man in the High Castle? They talk about your some of your stuff. You got some books out there with Nazi. You've got some nonfiction out there that you wrote.
That's the book that I just told you about. It's called We Break the Sword.
Oh, okay.
And some people have compared it to The Man in the High Castle. I never heard of that book before somebody brought it up to me recently. But that's based, from what I understand it, Man in the High Castle and some other books like that are sort of fantasy histories that are based upon the notion that the Nazis won World War II and took over the United States and occupied it. We Break the Sword is a mind war novel in which World War II stops by joint cooperation in 1940. Nobody wins it because it comes to a halt cooperatively. And that's the mind war aspect of it, and that's what that novel is all about. Yeah. And I picked that particular date to set it in because in my research, 1940 was just about the last chance that they had to do something like that before it got way out of control. I mean, all of the huge, massive invasions and massacres and Auschwitz and all the rest of them, those all date after 1940, when everything just got way out of control and it turned into a mass slaughter. So as I figured it out, as I worked it out, I said 1940 was just about the last chance they would have had to get this thing under control before it all went to hell. And that's what my novel is about. That's why it's different from something like the High Tower thing.
Yeah.
The High Castle.
As we know, The Man in the High Castle, it talks about the Japanese. I kind of snicker when I read this question, but it talks about the Japanese winning World War II. They ask you what your thoughts on some of the thoughts out there about people saying the Japanese won World War II. And this question, you can choose to answer this or not. I snicker about this because I've talked to this guy. What kind of soldier was Douglas Dietrich?
Well, Douglas Dietrich, I don't know and Douglas Dietrich, as far as I'm concerned, as far as his statements about me are concerned, is just a flat liar. I never had any contact with this guy at all, and all of his, a lot of his statements concerning what he did and what he knew about World War II or later on are simply factually false, and you don't have to look very hard. He said he worked for a particular headquarters at the Presidio in San Francisco in current times. That headquarters actually shut down after World War II. It didn't exist anymore, and so on. I mean, it's just on and on and on. The guy's bullshit on it.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you there.
I don't even like to waste a whole lot of time on it because that's the world is full of that kind of thing. But as far as the Japanese are concerned, when you look at who won World War II, my answer would be nobody won it because an awful lot of people everywhere died. And that's one of the reasons that I think the way I do concerning mind war, because these big wars, including the ones we're in today, nobody wins these. Some people suffer more and die more than others, but nobody really wins them. And the Japanese suffered terribly in World War II, and the people that they invaded and conquered suffered terribly in World War II. And what you want to say is, did anybody win World War II? And the answer is no, nobody did. Some people beat up on the others, as of 1945 and got them to surrender, but that's not the same thing as saying that, country A won and country B won. Who won the war in Vietnam? Well, some people think that the North Vietnamese won the war in Vietnam, but if you go to Hanoi today, there's Burger Kings and McDonald's and Starbucks all over the place. So who the hell won the Vietnam War? I mean,
I guess that's part of the mind war itself, the invasion of corporatism.
Well,
sometimes.
The thing of mind war is you got to get it through your head that nobody wins physical wars, violent wars. Everybody loses. And as soon as you understand that, then you understand why something like mind war is important. In that novel, We Break the Sword, that I just talked about, nobody wins in 1940. Adolf Hitler doesn't win. The other European governments don't win. But what they do is they stop World War II right then before it gets worse. And then they work on Europe, kind of to rebuild it from that point on. But it's not a question of one or the other side winning, and you got to get that kind of thinking out of your head. So that's where I would come in on that one.
Yeah. So I'll let you go here tonight. I got your Amazon thing linked up there to our website, patriotoutlaws.com. Anybody wants to gather any of these books up, by all means, go out there and get them. Dr. Aquino, it's been a very fun interview. It's been a pleasure talking to you. It's been I knew it'd be fun because I had a lot of questions I wanted to ask you, and I've got a million more probably. So maybe one day we can get back together again if I didn't bore you too much. This old hillbilly talk. But
I enjoyed it. I thought you had some good hard questions here, and I hope I responded to them. And I hope that everybody who was listening had a good time in listening to both of us.
Absolutely, sir. Hey, thank you very much. Have a great night.
And you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, there goes Colonel Aquino. Sorry, I mispronounce his name all the time. He corrected me on that. I'm Big Mac. This is Patriot Outlaws. We're broadcasting worldwide from the great state of South Carolina, FEMA Region 4. Give us a 5-minute break here. 864-610-3131. 864-610-3131. We're going to open up these phone lines here in just a second.
Pretty good there. We could go with a long. We got plenty of different topics we could talk about, but I mean, really about the same situation there. Personally, what I witnessed this week there, which in around the you could say it's right around there where the Army War College is there, close to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. There, Big Mac. They had this week there in Pennsylvania. There, they had a Chinook fly over me there this week, Big Mac. That did not. I'm telling you, it did not make a dang sound. It had no I've been around plenty of Chinooks in my whole life. I'm sure you have seen plenty in your whole life, and this dang thing was silent as it could be.
Silent, man. Like the engines
silent,
were
completely silent, man. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, the thing was silent, made no sound whatsoever. You know, a Chinook,
right?
Heck, it will shake a car when it's. I'm talking about less than 100 feet over top of my head. And this thing made no sound whatsoever. I mean, this is maybe the same technology the rumored, bin Laden thing, back there in Pakistan or whatever. Maybe the same technology they got on the Chinooks right now, but I don't know if it is or not. But I mean, it really astonished me.
God,
see a Chinook.
The Chinook is old technology, man. But here's what it is. They can't replace the power of it. I mean, the thing is can lift stuff that's unimaginable power. And I mean, they're crazy, but nobody's been able to come up with anything any better as far as a helicopter heavy lifter like that. And as far as a troop carrier, they can carry massive amounts of people. I mean, we know that over there in Afghanistan, all the people who were involved in the bin Laden thing were shot down in a Chinook. A lot of them were. The last time I saw a Chinook, it's been a long time ago, but the big time I saw, I've told this story on the air before, it was about the time I saw the UFO. And all the Chinooks, there was like 12 of them lined up, flying in the air, flying formation back and forth, north to south, chasing this ball of light. Now, what was that ball of light? I don't know. As we've seen this week, Frank, did you see the ball of light there earlier in the week flying over out west? Maybe it was a Chinese missile.
Which was a Chinese, supposedly, from all the information I got, was a Chinese, what was it, X-7 satellite, not a missile or whatever, which they launched, supposedly. This was the crazy situation. What the information I got, they had launched the same satellite, which was supposed to be a satellite that's supposed to pick up the space debris, which they done a missile test on, probably back during 2013, 2012 at the same time frame. And that was supposed to be, these were cheap satellites. They was going to launch them up, cheap rockets, cheap satellites, clean outer space up. But evidently, these was, from what I've heard, they was going to be military weapons. And I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not the Chinese, but I mean, they were supposed to be military weapons. These going to knock our satellites out, like our Star Wars program, their Star Wars program, the Chinese. And but that same time, like a day or two afterwards, the Russians launched a top secret space launch at the same time. And that day, that morning, we launched a satellite into outer space from Florida, there, whatever that Cape
Canaveral.
I don't know, from Florida, Canaveral or whatever. Yeah. I don't know what it's called. Down there in Florida, we launched a top secret satellite supposedly at that time as well. After this whole incident happened that night, I don't know if it had a coincidence or what, but I mean, we got a lot of top secret stuff going on for some sort of reason. A lot of people, from what I'm getting around, I listen to a lot of things, hear a lot of people, they're always about the Planet X, the Nibiru, the Dark Star, whatever you want to call it. That's the whole reason they say that everything's behind this whole situation, which I don't know if it's true or not. But,
I don't know.
I don't. We've heard people about that. I don't know what's going on. I mean, it's a lot of people are launching a lot of different top secret stuff.
Well, in a strange kind of way, I hope it is something like Planet X. That would explain a lot. That'd be rational, something I could put my eyes around and my hands around and actually absorb that. But otherwise, stuff that's going on in this country right now, in this particular time frame, I can't get my head around it. We just got through off of the Democratic convention. The left-right paradigm is as big as it's ever been. I mean, we've had massive protests up there in Cleveland. We had people calling during the Michael Aquino interview. I don't know who they are, man.
It was,
just over and over again. I mean, it was just, I don't know whether they were trying to disrupt it or what, but it was just this people calling and leaving messages. I have to listen to those messages and see what's going on.
I didn't, I hated that for you, but the lines were closed. And I did send that out that we were not going to open the lines. We're going to give Dr. Aquino a chance to talk.
I don't know what was going on there, but it was something weird going on. But,
a lot of people want to, just a lot of people wants to sabotage him. Whether or not you like him or not.
Well,
people want to sabotage man, just like they want to sabotage. A lot of people,
Right. And I think, it could have been a mistake.
Well, we've ran into that before, where people have tried to make certain moves on other people.
Who was it? That one lady you had on that everybody hated? Oh my God. We had tons of people get on the chat and be like, "Why do you have this bitch on? Nobody likes her. I hate her."
We don't discriminate against bitches.
I think
Carrie Cassidy.
Judy was. She had a big fan following.
Well, speaking of that, and when I don't mind talking about it, but speaking of Judy and all, David Schurter and everybody else we've had on.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we'll be the. I tell you.
Well, hey, listen. Here's what I will say, and I was going to mention this to Aquino, but I didn't really get a chance to really come up with make it make sense in the interview. But she said this last night, and I've said this to Schurter, or I've said it to anybody else claiming the satanic ritual abuse thing. Hey, listen. We know that there are child molestation rings in this country. Mm-hmm. Whether or not they're related directly to the Church of Satan or the Church of Temple of Set, I don't know that. I mean, that's kind of like neither here nor there thing. But if people are operating these things under the name of Satan or under the name of Lucifer or whoever the hell else you're going to babble the damn kitty cat dog or whatever he is.
Well, we'd like to think that only somebody who worships Satan would do something so horrid as molesting a child. Yeah. We would hate to think of the fact that somebody who worships God, but then again, we have the Catholic Church.
That's a fair point.
We've got,
and who says they're not one and the same?
Yeah.
And so you mentioned the. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say if 1% of what David Schurter or any of these other people that we've had on that talks about that kind of stuff, the abuse and murder and ritual sacrifice, if 1% of it is true, it's 1% too damn much. 1% too damn much is what I say. That's just what I got to say about it.
That's what we were talking about the other night.
1% too much. That's all I got to say on that. Go ahead, Frank.
1% too much. Personally, I would think that the Satan worshipers or whatever, I would be personally more worried about the Muslims, in my opinion, more than anything else.
Oh, you better be.
They're I put it this way, I would sit down and drink a beer with the old colonel there any day of the week. Wouldn't bother me whatsoever. I can get along with anybody. But you know what? I don't think I could get along with a Satanist. I cannot really get along with a Muslim just because of their belief system. That's the way I believe.
You know what? I'm right there with you. I think we could sit down, have a beer, and have a couple of intelligent discussions about the fourth dimension and time travel. I really think that would be cool.
I might need a couple of shots for that. But hey, on the Muslim thing, Frank, what's the guy's name? I'm trying to on RBN. He broadcast them with the Green Beret guy. What's that guy's name? John. Not John. What's his name? Hell.
John Moore.
John Moore. Yeah. He was on there the other morning talking about Muslims and Islam or whatever, and he was saying that he knew a guy that was an assistant or a builder building houses or something, and they were building all these big houses somewhere up north, and these like $400,000 houses these Muslim people were building, and the guy said to the architect, said, "Hey man, there's something missing off these plans in the bathroom. You guys are," I don't know if this is a joke or not, but he said this was a true story, and he's not the joking around kind of guy. He's very dry. And he said, yeah, man. He goes, "You're missing the toilet paper dispenser off all these bathrooms." And he goes, he said the architect looked at him and said, "Son, they don't have toilet paper." And the whole rumor is that they wipe their ass with their left hand, and they try to shake Westerners' hands with their damn shitty hand.
With the left hand.
As the guy on South Park says, shitty hand.
That's their shitty walk. That's Chinese food, shitty walk.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if that's true or conspiratorial or some kind of a derogatory thing. But if that's true, man, that's some crazy crap there myself.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. I've not listened to him in it's been probably 6 months since I've listened to him. But that's very interesting.
Well, even if it is true, they have to wash their hands. So
and one of the things they said over in who knows what they do with it? Maybe they lick it clean like it's finger licking good, baby.
Maybe they make their women do that. Their women are property for goodness sake.
That's why you wear the burqa, so you can wipe your hand on the burqa. But
right.
God. Anyway, they said over, in certain areas they'll go on and they'll try to come up and shake your hand intentionally. They'll see a Westerner like in Europe and where they're migrating into, and they'll try to shake your hand. And
maybe
the first
that's
thing
why
they do,
we came up with the fist bump.
I've been around a lot of ragheads in my time, and I don't think a raghead would come up to me and want to shake my hand.
No, I'm with Frank on that one again.
I get bad looks around them when they see me, and I give them the bad look back. I don't care who they are.
Oh, they don't like me. Yeah, they don't like me either.
I can get. I've been around. I've had the women ragheads just adore me all up and down. I mean, just love me all together.
Now you got one on me. They hate me.
Give me the answers to the test and everything whatsoever. Just worship me. I mean, for no reason. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It makes no sense.
I've been at Walmart, and I guess Mac has seen this. The women will look at us like we're garbage. And they'll especially look at me. And you know what I like?
Those are black, though. They're black Muslims.
They're
the
fake ones. Yeah, they're the fakers. But what I do is I wave and smile.
Well, wave and smile. No joking around, man. This week we have had a rash of stuff going on. We've had the Bavarian thing over in Germany, the shootout at Club Blue down there in Florida. The Japan stabbings, and then Normandy, people blowing themselves up, and the execution of the priest. I mean, hell, we don't even have time we haven't even had time to talk about all this.
Yeah, and the Muslims,
oh my goodness, what is that going on your Twitter there, She-Beast?
Well,
spread eagle, man.
Yeah, I have.
Send that to Frank real fast. Hello.
Sorry, Frank, you're gonna wish you were on my Twitter, but I have a Twitter follower, and she posts all kinds of neat pictures.
She don't have her burqa on, I'll guarantee you that.
No. It's interesting porn fact she probably didn't know. I'm not gonna click on the article, but
wow.
The picture on there.
Go ahead. But what do we say about this, Frank? What do you have to say about all this stuff going on? These attacks are going exponentially out of control, man.
Hopefully she's not tucking there, She-Beast.
No, she's not. As a matter of fact, you can see right through her.
She's verified. She's verified. I verified her.
Yeah. Oh, you verified her. That's what I always like to say. But, you mentioned the Catholics and the priest over there, Very sad situation. I mean, the nun and the priest, anybody want to get... I don't believe you ought to torture anybody. I mean, but yeah, I have a little thing in my heart this week. We also had the Pope situation this week, which you failed to mention there. The great old Pope. The man there, She-Beast, who wears a white dress there. If you don't know who he is, I know that you're from your upbringing. You don't probably know who he is, but
yes. Well, we don't get a lot of child molesters up there in the hills, except for our uncles. So.
The old Pope there, he was sniffing a lot of crack this week, and that's the reason why the man he fell down supposedly down some stairs or something. I never got to see the video. They said there was a video out of it, but he supposedly threw out his back, had a little sciatica attack, in his hip, back, whatever, lower back, and but I'm with Pope Francis. I really do believe the same as Pope Francis.
Really.
I really don't think we should judge. I don't think we should judge these gay people. And I don't want to judge Pope Francis because I really believe he's a gay person.
Don't let me spend 2 hours editing your show now tomorrow morning, please. Let me stop you now.
Nothing bad there, Big. All right, Big Mac. I don't think there was nothing bad about that. I mean, I what Pope. I was quoting him. He quotes. That's a quote from Pope Francis.
You're good so far. So far, you're good. So far, you're good. I'm just warning. It's a warning. It's a warning.
Well, I mean,
Whatever.
Go ahead.
Not like he was going to do anything else on Sunday anyway.
Now you're reminding me there. You want to complain about last week's show.
Right.
Seriously. This is like a Democrat National, whatever convention committee or whatever. If I wanted to hear a bunch of women screaming and complaining and bitching and everything else, I would call my mom. Hell, I don't want to hear this shit when I'm talking on the damn phone with you. Yeah.
We're gonna do what Hillary did. You better be careful. You better be very careful, Frank. We're gonna do to you what Hillary did to the Bernie supporters. We'll get a paid sit-in to sit in your spot.
Hello, my name is Dirty Frank. Yes, I'm here to represent the Dirty Frankster. Where'd you go, Dirty Frank?
Right here.
Oh, there he is. Okay, he was speechless. I was
listening to Shibby. See if you had any more.
He was busy taping his tuck for later on tonight.
That makes me laugh. It makes me cough.
I heard first time this week. I never really understood. I don't even know if you know this, Big Mac. These transvestites. This right here really killed me. I heard somebody on the radio talk about it this week. Evidently, when supposedly, I don't know, I wasn't young enough or whatever, but when your balls drop when you're real, real young.
Really? My balls haven't dropped yet.
Except in mine in your throat.
Oh my God.
Supposedly, that's the conspiracy about everything. Your balls drop. Well, supposedly these transvestites, they tuck their balls back up in them holes. I never knew this stuff. I mean, that's some crazy stuff to me. Mine are too sensitive to tuck anywhere. I don't know how they're getting around by this. I don't understand it. I mean, I don't know how you could do it.
I thought they tucked them up their crack. I thought they tucked them around their crack.
That brings a whole new perspective to pocket
I would really
pull.
like for somebody to call in who is a transvestite who tucks, who is a performer, and tell us how that works.
I'm interested in how you get the 8 ball in the corner pocket.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, maybe we could get Michael on sometime. Michelle.
That'd be great. We need
I bet she would not.
We need to hire an impersonator. Yeah. Maybe I could do it one day. I could work on that voice and pull that off.
I don't know if Big Mac. I've not mentioned to you this week, and I know the Sheebies probably don't know about it. She might know about it. I don't know. The Hillary seizure video. Did you all get to catch that this week?
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah, I did. And, I've watched it a few times, and I watched the original version. I'm not so sure that what I saw the first time was legit. Go ahead, Frank. Go ahead. Tell me what you think about it.
I put it in my top 10. Top 10, Big Mac. Sheebies.
Wow.
Top 10 of all things, or top 10 seizures? What?
Let me tell you something. My spank bank material, baby. I tell you what, to enjoy the good time right there. Woo!
Bank.
I hope I'm not there. I hope I'm not in the stank bank somewhere.
She said the stank bank.
Never know. It's a top 10 list. Remember that.
You're definitely in the stank bank.
No, I'm not.
Oh man! So, what'd you think this week? Did you watch any of the speeches at DNC, Frank?
Oh my God!
One of the things I want to bring up tonight before we get too far down the road is fact checking. The First Lady Michelle Obama is saying that that the White House was built by slaves.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
Well, there were slaves that were brought on at one point, but
they were white.
No, well, there were some slaves, but most of the people who built the White House were actually white people.
The pink house. Wait a minute. The Douglas Dietrich. There was a pink house before there was a White House.
Oh.
And remember, we lost because the Canadians beat us in 1812, maybe 1830. Who knows?
I was going to ask you about that. What do you think about Aquino's response on Dietrich? He was plausible deniability there. Somebody's lying. I don't know who.
But
here's what I always think: when you've got two sides of a story, who has more to gain by lying?
Somebody's lying. I don't know who.
I don't
Somebody's
think that
telling
Aquino has more to gain by lying than 3D does.
I don't know that. I don't know that for sure. I don't, but I can tell you that one of them is telling a damn big ass lie. Well, don't know which one because I wasn't there. So,
but who has more to gain by lying? That's what I always think when somebody lies.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who's got more to gain?
I honestly,
but which one could pass a meth test? That's all.
Well, and there we are with that one too. Yeah.
I put my bets on our guest tonight. You could pass a good drug test. Mm-hmm. Compared to some other people. I don't want to mention no names, but
oh hell, I will.
Well, and you also think about who's living off of.
You're all retarded.
You're
stupid.
The taxpayers, and I don't mean taxpayers in regards to you actually earned it in the military sense. You actually are welfare.
Go
ahead, Frank. What do you say?
Sorry.
You know what? We're stupid Americans, and that's what we deserve.
Yeah, I just played that actually.
Yeah.
But you know the DNC there. You know this back on the Democratic National Convention there, which I'm sure Douglas and his whole Indian gang over there he's got over there in San Francisco and Texas really likes that used to work for Art Bell. You know, you know the DNC there. I feel personally that you know. My thought is that basically God has really showed me the way of Philadelphia.
Praise Allah.
Because, you know, they showed me the true light of Philadelphia. Because, you know what? I always heard all my life about Philadelphia, Big Mac. And I'm sure you have too. It's the city of brotherly love.
Yeah.
And I have never seen no more. You know what? I was last week about the gays. LGBTQ on Trump.
Watch yourself, Frank. Watch yourself.
They was really out. I'm telling you, I've never seen no more. I've been around, I tell you, there's never been more I've seen on TV than the Democrat convention this week. And that's really the city of brotherly love there this week.
Oh, well, hell, what about these people who are non-binary shit, who don't claim anything?
Oh, they're not a man or a woman.
And they're at their will. They're at whatever way the wind is blowing, and their little ding-a-ling or their little jiggy gets up if you're a woman, whatever your little thing feeling that day.
Go ahead and use scientific terms.
Yeah,
okay.
Whatever your little cunt's feeling that day.
No, not that word. Not that word.
You just go with the flow. I mean, you know, whatever you want to do, you do. And if you're a woman and you feel like a gay man, well, you bend over and take it up the ass. I'm non-binary, so you can't count me as a 1 or a 0. So I'm just gonna do whatever. Your damn Twitter's distracting as hell. I'm just telling you.
Oh, did you
I mean,
not
my
like
God,
Hillary
what the hell's
Clinton
going on?
That's Hillary Clinton.
I see it, but that doesn't play well on radio. It's a visual
She's
thing.
She's blowing water out of her ass.
Yeah. But I don't know. The non-binary thing, Frank, just blows me away, dude.
Well,
that's a very confusing whole subject in its own. I mean, its own self. I mean, that's a whole show by itself. I mean, non-binary. That's something you might hear. That's like a Star Wars, Star Trek thing, in my opinion. I mean, who would ever back during the day? I mean, you know, probably the most thing we would ever hear, you know, as far as sexual wise, would be gay. You know, back during the time that me and you was, and then She Beast was little at the time. That's the most thing we would ever hear. We'd never hear of any. Even bisexual back then. You never heard of bisexual.
I've got something to say about this too. These people who say they're non-binary, they're actually stupid and they're actually very wrong, because there are people who are born hermaphroditic who have both sexes, and actually they should say they are non-trimary. Or trinary, because we have more than just 2 biological sexes out here.
That's not. He's willing to try everything once.
Mac likes it when I talk like.
Oh man, what was her name? Not Grace Kelly, but what was the black lady?
It was Grace Kelly.
No.
Grace Kelly was too.
Grace. What was her name in the 80s? The Grace black girl, black lady.
Oh, I'm sorry, not Grace Kelly. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
Grace something.
Yeah.
While you're thinking of that, hey, you think about this? How far we've come. Think about the controversy when Ellen on her show came out. And how that shook the damn world. It's been exponentially from there. Like we have went from.
Well, because we all enjoyed her show, her sitcom, and you and I did too. I mean, don't lie. She was probably one of the funniest women at the time.
She's still funny. I mean, there's no doubt whether she's gay or not.
You know what? I don't care. As long as you're not coming to my house.
I think it was first that woman, Grace, which had a TV show, which she's a comedian now. I think she was the one, she was an industrial worker at the time.
No, but she didn't play lesbian. She played a single mother on there. Grace Under Fire.
Yeah,
she's like a redneck comedian, hillbilly girl, and she was a single mother. But was she a lesbian on that show?
No,
I don't think so.
She wasn't.
She may be in real life.
Grace Black. It was Grace Black. Grace Black is actually a black woman who is hermaphroditic.
What in the hell are we talking about now? We've gotten off.
We were talking about Grace, and you said Grace Kelly, and I said, and then you're not. No,
you're two steps behind. He's talking about another show.
Yeah, I know, but then he thought of Grace. Oh wait, was it this one? And then I said, no, it's a Grace Black.
I've not, as far as I know, I've never met a hermaphrodite. I mean, if I did, I would definitely know about it. I mean,
I would find it completely fascinating because I'd be like, so what are you feeling like today?
No, here's the problem with, most people that are hermaphrodite. Now here's the issue. Like, I know she'd be sure big on the HB2 stuff in the bathroom issue, and I say there is an out, and here it is. These people, and there's a documentary, and I don't remember what it's called, but it's on PBS a few years ago, where people, they decide, like, when they're like 2 weeks old, they know they have both sexes, and they cut one of them out.
They're the hermaphrodites.
But once you've had it cut out, there's no damn turning back from that. You may feel like a woman, or you may feel like a man, but you had nothing developed.
But to be honest with you, in their defense, if you are born a hermaphrodite, you have both sex organs, and therefore your parents are making that decision for you. You didn't make that decision.
Or the doctor does.
So, I will say this.
Perhaps say it again.
They are the ones. If you would shut up, they are the people who should make those decisions. If you have a child who is born with both sex organs, perhaps they're the ones who should make the decision.
Perhaps.
Because they have to live with it for the rest of their life. It's not out of convenience.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know what they feel like. And
I do. I know what they feel like. You know
there's more people like that than we know.
You know what? With a hermaphrodite, you usually have to use both hands.
Don't listen to her, Big Mac. She's a German. Watch out.
I'm a Nazi.
She's gonna be able to shit on me here in a minute.
Oh my! I'm not going over there and do that for you.
Fuck you.
Man, that's enough.
No fist fucking in here.
It is the after show. It is the after show, by the way, folks. We broadcast worldwide from the great state of South Carolina, deep region 4, deep in this great state of South.
I've got a very important story there, Big Mac. I told you a few weeks ago there.
Yes, go ahead, buddy.
Which I've not told on the air yet. I mean, I received some information there a few weeks ago that, people on their rental cars, you rent a car out here, folks. We're getting a lot of. I have received a lot of information from more than one source right now that the government is paying for illegals, coming across the border from the south, and traveling into the country, far deep into the country there because evidently there's not enough buses. But these rental car company places, they are having a problem with diseases being in this thing, especially drug-resistant TB right now, and they have lost one guy I talked to had lost 3 cars. I mean, that's one thing just over the drug-resistant TB.
That's a big problem.
You can't get it out of the car. You can't scrub it out.
Yeah. Well, that's a big. Until this whole influx thing during the Obama administration, TB was a quarantinable offense because it is a devastating thing to humanity. I mean, it's awful, and it's very hard to kill. I mean, we've eradicated from North America for just a small percentage of people. I don't want to be the guy here to promote vaccines, but there was a thing that we've actually been positive. Tuberculosis is awful. It's a scourge, and we've let people in here who
TB.
Do what?
There's never been a vaccine for TB, just a test.
Right.
Oh well, I thought they could give you something for it though.
No. You have to be like Douglas Dietrich. He's the only one because he's had really pneumonia or something bad in his lungs, and he can't get TB. He's TB immune because his lungs are in such bad shape.
Well, hell, it just goes to show you.
I mean,
It just goes to show you don't take your medical advice from the Patriot Outlaws.
Right. Well, at least we know where to get the immunities from.
Go to your doctor and ask him for the TB vaccine today.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll just say this after having our interview earlier. I was in Germany around the same time that Dr. Aquino was.
Uh-oh.
And so every time we went to Germany, we would have this thing called a TB time test. And I think you still have those now where they just, it's just a little thing they put on your wrist to see if you have tuberculosis.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Unless you walk across the border, you don't get that.
I think you got to go back to the doctor within 5 72 hours, 48 hours, something like that.
Like
and
3
they had
days.
To look at it. See if the bump's gone. There's a little bump, and the bump will still be on there, is the way it goes. But
I remember being a little kid, and when they gave that to me, I was like, oh, because we had all kinds of shots, to have to go overseas. And then when they gave that to me, I thought to myself, oh, my God, it's a test. I hope I pass this test, because I thought, oh, it's a test.
Don't just think about a rental car, Frank. I mean, think about this. Think about like a buggy in the grocery store or Walmart.
Oh, my God.
I mean, my God, who knows what you're getting from these people. If you really
wanted to screw people up, that would be the way to do it.
Think about where I go to nice places to eat at. Think about where you go to eat at. You eat out of that silverware.
Now, see,
the silverware.
As somebody who's been a waitress, I do not like to eat out. I do not like to eat out. I was a waitress in all my high school jobs. And
you like to eat in, don't you?
Well, I like to get eaten out. Okay, there we are. There's the after show. I don't like to eat out. I like to get eaten out. There you are.
Oh,
I did it. I said it.
Oh,
there. That's filthy and that's gross, but whatever. But I don't like to eat out of my home unless it's somewhere I totally trust.
Man, you're talented, Beast. You can eat out of your own home.
Yes. Well, that's Mac. You got to give it up for him because he's the one who does it. So,
hey, so here's one, Frank, for you. I don't know if you've heard this. This is from your territory over there. This is funny as hell. It is the after show. Man calls 911. Says wife was assaulted by toy at Tennessee Hibachi restaurant.
Really?
So he was at this, hibachi. I don't know if you've ever been to a hibachi grill where the guy does it's fun, man. He cooks the rice and steak.
He has a little onion volcano.
Yeah. So this fella there, probably an Asian guy. He has this little plastic doll that you pull his pants down. He's got a little wiener that pops out and pisses on you. It looks like he's peeing on you. And so he pulled the pants down and the water came out on the woman. It's a joke, Well, these people ate their damn meal, and they're not from Tennessee. They're from, I believe, I think they were from Cleveland. So they leave, pay for the meal, and leave. But then they get out in the car and they come back and they threaten them and say, "Well, we're going to call the police if you don't give us our meal free." Well, the manager refuses, and the poor Asian guy cooking the meal, he's totally confused. He don't know what the hell's happening, and so they call the police for sexual assault for this damn little doll that they pulled down that had the little mini wiener that pissed on her over the whole damn hibachi thing, man. I mean, what do you think about that? That's just nuts.
That's hilarious. I need to get one of those toys.
I've not heard of it, but I mean that is definitely a I don't know how they could even. I've never been to a restaurant that done that, but I mean I don't know how you could do sexual assault on that. I mean,
yeah, well,
that makes me double think about.
They should have walked out right then and there, in my opinion.
Yeah, if it pissed you off, I mean,
if it made you mad, then you refuse to pay for your dinner or whatever you ate. But I will say this, as many places of employment do, a place that I worked at years ago had this thing called Secret Santa. And so you would give, this person didn't know who you were, but you had to provide gifts, for under so many dollars. Well, I gave this person a donkey that pooped out jelly beans. So
oh my God, I thought you were going to say a dildo or something like that. I was worried.
But it's the same thing, is it not? I mean, the donkey pooped out jelly beans, and I'm so glad that person thought it was just funny because... I could have been brought up on harassment charges also, and it never occurred to me. I didn't know that was inappropriate. I just thought it was funny.
Well, here's the thing. We've gotten this politically correct world, and it's absolutely insane that somebody will go in and try to threaten a restaurant. And I give the restaurant credit because they didn't kowtow to them. They let the 911 call go through and let the police come. And they were like confused. We don't know. And one of the things I read about it was, we don't know how 911 works in your state, but we got offended here and was sexually assaulted. And of course the police came sexually assaulted. And then can you imagine the redneck cop who came in up there and said,
it'd be
who was that? And they said, it was that guy there. And it was a little plastic guy with the pants that dropped down with a little wiener that's like a micro-inch long.
That's when you break out your phone as a cop and you start taking pictures to put on your Facebook or Twitter account.
That's when you say, get the hell out of our state and don't come back.
Go the fuck on. I guess you're voting for Hillary, aren't you, assholes?
Get out of here. Called the 911 and said it was Dirty Frank, big fat.
Yeah.
Hey, can you see the lineup in the police station? You got like 4 guys and the little
toy guy.
The little toy guy. Okay, can you pick this sumbitch out of a lineup?
Stop it. I didn't take my cold medicine.
Hey, another big story out there is Islamic gang storms nudist pool shouting Allah Akbar, vowing to eradicate slut women.
Is this in Germany?
It is, yes.
Because in Germany, that's typical.
Man, me tell you what, if they're looking to eradicate slut women, they've got Outlaw's got one hell of a thing in front of them.
He's got a job. Yes. Yes, sir. You're going to be working overtime there, Allah.
He's got a lot of work to do.
And guess what? They're all not hiding out at the dirty pool. They're all at Panama City during spring break.
At the nudist pool, yeah.
They're at Panama City, Florida during spring break. That's where they are. So.
Well, I don't. There's some pretty new things over there that they call the. Let's see here what they call it. They call it the sand flies. What they call it there. You can look it up, type it in online.
Sand fly.
That's in European. They call it the sand fly. That's what it's called. And it's like all these little nudist beaches, and these people secretly video on these nudist beaches.
Right.
And man, these people are screwing everywhere. I mean, I tell you, it's a pretty good thing. I mean, it's not like male on male. It's male and female. It's actually there's females and stuff at this place.
Oh yeah,
it's one neat beach I want to go to. I'm telling you, any day.
Well, and when I was a kid growing up, we went to nudist beaches all the time in Germany because and I'll just tell you, if you went to Germany, along the Rhine River, nude sunbathers were there all the time, and that was just something you knew. It wasn't like people were laying out in their bikinis; they were laying out buck ass naked, men and women. And it wasn't anything. It wasn't taboo. It was totally okay.
I couldn't go because I mean, hell, I don't know how you couldn't keep from getting a hard on. I mean, I'd have to beat the damn thing to death 3 days beforehand.
Praise Allah. Now that I'm older, I understand that. But when I was a kid, I was like, I didn't even understand that because there were tons of kids there. And we would just, as a kid, you think that's awesome.
Here's what I always did. I always went, like, whatever country I was in. If I was in Germany, I'd write Viva la Germany on the side of my dick. And I would say, I am trying out for the national pole vaulting team.
Oh, my God.
I guess you probably wouldn't want to try out for it down there, so you would go to the... where they having the damn Olympics at, where it's all that shit and everything in the damn
Brazil.
Rio, my friends, Rio.
Brazil is the country.
Yes,
Rio is the town.
Rio is carnival, and that's why they're not going in February.
That's why you're going to get the damn Zika down there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you better wrap that wiener, fellas and ladies.
Yeah, they got that dang cat disease down there. They got a cat disease there down there in these South American countries that spreads through the cats, and all the people get it, and it's like a real hyper. You get real sexually active over it. It makes you real sexually hyper and everything like that. Want to have sex with a lot of people.
Wait.
And it's
dun 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 dun.
Cat scratch fever.
Cat scratch fever.
We have that in Charlotte. In Charlotte, the Panthers.
Oh man, that's a good one. Cat scratch fever, man. Wow, that's scary though. That is true. I've heard of that before. When I was a kid, I heard about getting cat scratch fever. It's a legitimate thing.
I don't think it's cat scratch fever or some other thing, but it's a thing that goes on basically down in South America.
Huh.
And I mean, they've also got down in that whole area there. There's a thing on HBO I watched. On Vice or whatever, it was last year, come out on Vice, which now they've got. I've got thousands of freaking cable channels now, on the Direct TV, and I finally figured out how to turn it. And the dang thing it's got a Vice channel just on the TV, but they down there in South America, like in Brazil or Venezuela, one of them countries, they actually. All the young men, they go down there and they screw. It actually shows it on the thing. It's a rite of passage to go down there and screw a donkey.
Really?
I saw a strange thing online the other day where it looked like it was in Afghanistan or somewhere, and it was like a thing where the guy walked around the corner in a stable, and this kid, he was a teenage guy, maybe 18, 19 years old, he had his pants down, about to mount up on a damn donkey, and they caught him on the video, and he was so embarrassed. He was like an Afghani-looking guy. I don't know where he was from, but Pakistani, something like that, you know. But hell, I mean, he was so embarrassed because he was about to get it on, baby.
I don't know how that would get it down for you, man. You got to be really damn desperate, I tell you.
You got to be, man. You got to be like a thirsty man in the desert for that.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but I mean, you know, I guess if it's what does it for the man, I mean, let him go right ahead. The way I look at it.
No, man, the poor donkey, man. The donkey has some rights, dude. Listen,
not gonna feel anything off of damn human.
I don't give a shit. Hell, that damn guy that'll walk up and screw a damn donkey in the ass will try to fuck you while you're asleep at night. That's the kind of sumbitch that is, man. I don't want him around me. He needs to have his.
Exactly, Big Mac. You're telling it right. That's a damn Muslim for you. That's why we got to worry about the damn bastards.
All right, Frank. What else you got, bud?
Okay, well, I've got one last update there, which I passed along to the, which was I've not had a chance to say this. It's been a week or two since I've done this right here, which I've gave other information to Mr. Roger Stone here lately.
Oh, God.
Exactly. But, this right here, this was an update there, which we sort of broke here. You remember been about 3 or 4 weeks ago there about the UN vehicles up there in Virginia, at the time.
Yeah.
And which is off of exit 45 there. That's where they all went to, exit 45. And they went east of there, and there's a little base from there they went to, and they sort of store over there. And basically there, my whole information is, which I've said before on this show, for anybody who don't remember, we got from there about 7 to 8 miles north of there. You all have it's a big airport there. It's like the Virginia Mountain regional mountain airport in Virginia or whatever, some little airport. But it's a airport. It can take. It could take the biggest jetliner you could ever have, because they have secret bomb shelters in this whole area there, Big Mac. They also, in the last year, they had 12 of the airplanes, and the Ghost turns into helicopters, which is, I think, used for the Marine Corps.
Yeah, the Osprey.
Ospreys. They was practicing taking over the airfields, last year, with about 10 to 12 of these Ospreys in that whole area. And it's they do a lot of military drills. And at the same time last year, they had a plane. I was like a blimp, a plane. I don't know what it was. The thing was so freaking huge. It was not like any blimp, which today there we saw in the Drudge Report there was a air balloon, burned up. It was not. It moved through the air so gracefully. I don't know what I cannot explain what it was. It was so huge, so big, moved through the air gracefully, and it was unreal how big this thing was, and it just went through the air. I just so hard to explain it, and it kept on going toward the east as well. But I don't know if it was supposedly they're using them for the same type of style what I saw for missile defense or whatever, the airspace defense.
Yeah.
That they have or whatever. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was an unreal piece of machinery. I put it that way. That's how big this thing was, which I've never seen one before. Anywhere in the whole country, and it was really unreal. But that's basically my whole thing. I gave these specific instructions. Hey, Trump wants to make a speech there. He was in Roanoke, Virginia this past week. There, Big Mac and Sheep Beast. I don't know if you know that or not. He done a little speech there at the which Virginia spent $40, $50, $60 million on rebuilding a old hotel from like the early 1900s, and just gave away to a corporation. Donald Trump could have been down there to this little place right here and done a little speech where these UN vehicles would have been at, and everything right there, right across the little 10-foot fence with barbed wire, razor wire, and done a little speech about that. That would have been one heck of a great deal. And I'm not really, be honest with you, like I say, I'm not a Donald Trump fan. I'm not a Hillary fan or nobody. But you know what? I help people who is, generous. That's all I got to say.
Well, here's what I'll say. I bet old Roger Stone, man, is down there, the Zika thing. They say no sex in Miami right now. I hope that's playing out well for him and his buddy Alex Jones when they're doing the thing to each other. I heard you can even catch Zika from oral sex. So yeah, who knows?
Oh, yeah.
I got a bad taste in my mouth just thinking about it. Yo.
Oh, wow. This sort of reminds me of this whole week at the DNC there. You mentioned an oral sex there. In my opinion, from what I listened to it, Hillary, I think she really went down like Lewinsky on a poll or two this week. DNC.
Nah, she didn't. Bill wouldn't have slept through her speech if she would have went down like Monica did. Would have paid more attention.
Maybe it was just a fantasy of mine. Maybe it was just a fantasy.
Maybe.
I don't know. It could have been a fantasy. I mean, I'm having some pretty sick fantasies lately.
Well, pull that cigar out your ass there, Frank.
You know what? We've had the Alex Jones, the telethon, their Big Mac. And I don't know if you all
God, yes. I'm glad you said that, yeah.
Oh, God, we had the big telethon. But you know what? I participated in the telethon because, I bought some iodine with the telethon, which I didn't really need no iodine, but I bought some. I'm going to get my wife on iodine. I was this one needs some iodine. And for her situation, I thought, and I heard another doctor say it, get the woman some iodine, see if I can't straighten her out a little bit.
Well, give us a report on how that works. I'd like to know. I mean, that's interesting stuff. We make a lot of fun of Alex, but
I'm still going to do the big thing, which I think you ought to let out the secret on his shitting formula there, Big Mac and Cheese Beast.
Oh, you mean the Oxy? That's not really his, though.
That OxyCleanse?
No, we've said that on the air.
Oh,
we've talked
we
about
have
that.
always said
it
that.
Works. I mean, hell, but
I couldn't.
Hey, listen, there is no rocket science in making a human being shit. I mean, there's multiple ways to do that.
But no, the magnesium oxide, you can go look it up.
Yeah.
You can go look it up on eBay.
Oh,
you can get pharmaceutical grade, 500 milligram pharmaceutical grade magnesium oxide. I seen it. It was like 6 bottles added up, 200 something to a bottle. There's 1,500 milligrams per pill in Alex Jones's formula. What it comes in is 60 to a bottle or whatever.
Yeah, 60. Yeah.
So there's three to a bottle. You get 200, and you can buy 20 for $25 free shipping on eBay. Pharmaceutical grade, same stuff. And why would you spend $49 for this?
Damn it, you're killing the money bomb for the info war. It's about the info war, man.
But you know what? He might be cheap on some stuff. I just hate the man is lying, saying, I don't mark it up, but that some people mark up 5-6 times. I mean, hell, what's he marking up some stuff? I mean, God, some of this stuff's outrageously priced, like historical food. I mean, historical food is doesn't even compare to anything, even 40% off.
Oh yeah,
I can buy somewhere cheaper than that. The same stuff he's got, I can go buy somewhere cheaper.
Here's the thing: if you go and track his pricing, he's giving 40% off the retail price, but it's always like 20 or 30% off anyway. So the most he's ever given you off on anything is $5 at the most. If you were to really track it this week to next week and the week after that, he's never given like 40% off. That's a BS move. Hey, but that's his business, whatever. I don't care. But here's the thing about it, Frank. While we're on the subject of Alex and the money bomb, a lot of people on his website were asking the question, where are the satellite uplinks? Where are the cable channels?
He answered it on Friday.
What did he say? I didn't hear Friday's show.
He said that he had heard a lot of things. We've been doing the uplinks. A lot of people is picking it up, and just keep on the same thing. And we're continuing to do it. It's costing me $300,000 a year to keep that satellite uplink.
He's a damn fool if he's paying for that. I'll be honest with you. I mean, that's bullshit.
That's what he said. $300,000 a year.
No, that's his damn alimony payment to his old lady who's moved over to Israel, wherever the hell she went to.
Here, I just want to say this. I know you guys are talking about this other stuff, but on Twitter, the cruise people, y'all, The Ted Cruz people are attacking me like crazy on Twitter, even more so than the Hillary Clinton people, because I keep presenting them with facts. But the Cruz people think he's a fucking saint. And I told them, I said, I voted for the man in the primaries, but he's not a fucking saint. Quit pretending like Ted Cruz is a fucking saint, you guys. Quit it. He's not. His wife isn't. He isn't.
You wouldn't mess with him. Tell him that there's rumors of Ted Cruz showing up at the Temple of Set.
I bet Dr. Aquino can testify to what I'm just saying.
I bet for a fine bottle of Chianti, we could send it to Aquino, and he would come on here and say that Cruz was there.
Hey, you know what? I would talk to Michael, and I'm going to use that term because that's his first name, in a fourth dimension discussion with some good freak show wine, which I love, and I'm pretty sure he would totally say that. So, but you know, the Cruz people are crazy. They're as bad as the Hillary Clinton people.
You know, Frank will tell you about the Glenn Baxters and the Cruz. I mean, he's been on them for a long time.
They're nuts. They hated the fact that I said, they're like, he's a saint, blah blah. But we all love him. Folks, he's got skeletons. And somebody said, do you not have skeletons? I got skeletons, baby.
None of my skeletons work at Goldman
I'm not
Sachs.
running for president. I never worked for I never ran for president, and yeah, my wife never worked for Goldman Sachs.
God, I wish mine did though. God,
I know, right? Because they need to be rich and whatnot. But let me just say that. To be honest with you, folks, you want to talk about jersey wearers and hypnotic like type of shit?
Well, you're right on Frank's alley there, man.
Yeah.
I hope that Cruz goes with I hope he gets
He's trying to get the top 10 list now, I believe.
Oh man!
And it's funny, these people attacked me and didn't even know who I was voting for. They have no idea. I just said, they're like, Ted Cruz is such a good guy and he does all this stuff, and I was like, but he bailed out of the election before any of the bad stuff could come out. And they pounced on me worse than Hillary people did. Because Hillary people got to, congregate and think about what they're going to say first.
All right, Frank. You got anything else, buddy, before I let you go?
I guess I'll go ahead and get off there. Y'all have a good night.
All right, man. Have a good one. Thanks for calling in, bud.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. All right, so let's, hey, guys, by the way, man, if you want to call in, if you're out there, new listener, 864-610-3131, 864
Well, and sorry to the earlier caller, but I had to hang up on you. I'm sorry about that, but we were going to let Dr. Aquino talk.
Hey, just dial that back. Hell, let's see if they pick up.
Oh, hey, okay.
Dial it back. I don't care. They called a bunch of times.
Yeah, hang on. I'm going to call you.
We'll see what they do. They say a name or something, hang up on them.
I will.
Be ready to hang up.
If it goes to voicemail, I will hang up. I don't want anybody to call your number.
Hey, man, this is, you called us earlier there, man. This is Patriot Outlaws. How you doing?
I'm sorry.
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess, whatever.
Well, it was I want to say, I wonder if that was not Train Guy, and he just didn't know that we had Michael Aquino.
Oh, maybe.
Aquino.
Maybe.
Calling us.
All right, so let's get to this last little bit here, guys. All right, here we go. Let's do this white privilege.
Why are you speaking over transport? Why do you your white ass? Are you a fascist? You're fucking privileged.
Are you a fascist?
They're communists. They're
communists. I eat fascist for breakfast, homeboy. What's up? Dinner time. Throw some water balloons.
Why are you speaking over?
They're attacking the peaceful people. These are peaceful people.
It's your fucking privilege that allows you to speak over trans people.
Here we go. It's a bullshit.
Get the fuck out of there.
You want to go where it's dark?
I never told you to play.
You want to go where it's dark?
See, I don't get this. Like this guy right here, get the fuck out of their face. I would go ballistic on that beast. That's why I don't go to these things, because that little fat fucker right there, man, I'd push him back and so deep into the hole, it wouldn't even be funny.
Right.
Watch him. He's like the enforcer. Like, you got to get back now.
You throw water balloons and light fires.
Who the fuck threw a water balloon?
Look at him.
See, you know what? I realized. Here's what I would say to that guy, dude. I realize you two guys are fighting over going to fuck this girl tonight. One of you wants to fuck her tonight, and I realize
no,
that.
They all do. What are you talking about? They all
They're
do.
calling us back.
No answer.
Well, both of you want to fuck her, and I understand that, but only one of you can win. So who's it going to be?
Oh, go ahead and answer. Hey, how you doing? And welcome aboard.
Hey, this is QTX call. If you can tell me how much in the jackpot you win it all.
Oh, yeah? What's that about?
What do you need, man? What's going on?
Oh, man, not much. How you doing?
How you doing?
Yeah.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. I'm naked right now. How are you?
So what do you got, brother? What's going on?
Ah, man, we're walking around here just having a good time, man. What's up with you?
So who is this?
This is Mac, man. Who's this?
Mac who?
Big Mac. The guy that you get up on Tinder. Remember that? Big Mac? Oh, God almighty. What a pussy. Anyway. All right, so let's get back to this.
I didn't know anything about the fire. Cameras, please. This is the perfect fucking example.
You guys throw water balloons, burn flags? Get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here.
Cameras, please. This is the perfect example of how
and again, here's what I would say to those guys. I realize the two of you want to screw the ugly girl, whatever, and that's your last chance.
Get out! No!
This is a perfect
example.
Stop speaking over me. This is a perfect example of why they can speak over a non-binary trans femme person. They can speak over a non-binary trans femme person.
A non-binary trans. In other words, she'll fuck everybody.
What?
That's what she's saying.
What box do you check for that? I mean, really, seriously.
A non-binary trans person. In other words, she fucks everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a man who dresses as a woman, she'll screw you. If blah blah blah.
Violence is never the answer. Our voices are always silent. Our voices are always
Hear what he said? Look, that guy back there, the fat guy said, "I'll fuck someone up in front of all these cameras right now." Yeah, right.
Yeah, sure you will
there, buddy. Sure you will, buddy. Sure you will.
Yeah.
Jump all over that, brother.
So
Jump
you
all over it.
So you can screw the non-binary trans person.
Look, he's pissed.
They never let us.
That's a pissed off communist is what that is. You know what? You know what they need? The first one you beat the shit out of, they'll stop that damn yik yak. I guarantee you that. Every one of them will. Yeah.
And when we're angry, they act like they can.
They don't know what angry is.
Police how we're angry. We're angry.
Here's the problem.
Speaking over.
What she is she is actually a female. She's a female, and I'm going to talk over her because she doesn't want to be a female. You know why? Because she sees being a female as being weak. And so she tries to subject herself to this non-binary trans person so that she doesn't have to recognize as a female. Because as a female, as a woman, we actually have to fucking fight. We actually have to do stuff, and we actually have to fucking work. But if you can say, oh, well, I'm a non-binary trans person, then you don't have to recognize. Oh, go ahead. I'm going to preach it. As a woman, I'm going to go ahead and preach to you. I'm proud to be a woman. I'm not a non-binary trans bullshit. I am a fucking woman, and I will work twice as hard as anybody else, and I'm not afraid to say it. I'm happy to be a woman. I'm proud to be a woman. I don't have to pretend that I'm not a woman and maybe I might be a boy. No, sweetheart. There's no confusing a C cup for being a boy. No, I'm sorry. You got an A cup. You got dealt wrong.
Right, here we go. We're going to end it right here, guys.
Well,
Patriot Outlaws broadcasting.
I guess you didn't want to hear my tirade.
Oh, we're fine. No, you tirade. That's a great job.
But that's my thing with women. The females who do this, I'm sorry. You got blessed with an A cup, sweetheart. At least you don't have to fucking wear a bra when you run. But own it. There is no shame in being a woman. And that's what these feminists don't understand is that this whole Hillary Clinton bullshit, this binary, non-transgender stuff, this is meant to shame women. It totally is. It's feminazi bullshit that is meant to shame women. And it's not to me. It's not meant to shame men at all. There's no harm in having
I'm not
a
feeling
penis.
any shame. I'm not. No.
But it's meant to shame women. And as soon as women wise up and understand that, then we can all get on the same landscape, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Well said. Well said, She Beast. Any last words until next week? Next week we'll be in the month of August. We'll transition over. Next week will be a great show, I'm sure.
If you could, not sure.
Right.
Well, we don't have any DNCs or RNCs to talk
we don't.
about.
It's going to be full.
God.
It's going to be full on 2-on-2. Clinton versus Trump from here on out. So we'll have plenty to talk about with that, I'm sure. As always, thanks for joining us there, She Beast. It's been a great show. As always, 864-610-3131 is the number. We'd love to hear from you next week. This show will be on replay for the entire week. We got a lot to get to, I'm sure, coming up. We are the Patriot Outlaws. We broadcast worldwide via the Hillbilly Radio Network, and thanks a lot to those guys for hosting our show. Lots of listeners out there. Appreciate everybody. The numbers last week were just gigantic. Got a report from the network, and I really am humbled, and I can't believe how many people are listening. Email me at theweekendconspiracy@yahoo.com. I am